Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Cryptic Corpse. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious, where are you watching from, and what time is it in your part of the world? Now find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Jack Miller, and I killed my son. I didn't mean to do it, but that doesn't change anything, does it? Tommy is still dead. My boy is still gone because of me. It happened 3 years ago. I was drunk. Again. Tommy wanted to go get ice cream. He was only 8 years old, and he looked at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Please, Daddy, just this once." I should have said no. I should have put down the bottle and made him pancakes instead. But I didn't. I got in the car with my son and I drove straight into a tree. Tommy died instantly. I walked away with just a broken arm. The worst part, he was so excited about that ice cream. He was singing some silly song from school, tapping his little feet against the car seat. 1 second he was laughing, and the next, silence. Now here I am, driving to Uncle Pete's old hunting cabin in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. Pete died last winter, left me the keys, said it might help me think straight. There's a bottle of whiskey on the passenger seat and my dad's old hunting rifle in the back. I'm not sure which one I plan to use yet. The cabin looks exactly like I remember it. Small, wooden, sitting by a creek that runs through the forest. Tommy and I used to come here every summer. He loved fishing in that creek, even though he never caught anything bigger than his hand. "That's okay, Daddy," he used to say. "The little fish need to grow up too." God, I miss him. I parked the car and grabbed my stuff. The key still works, thank goodness. Inside, everything is covered in dust. Pete must have stopped coming here after he got sick. There's an old couch, a tiny kitchen, and a bedroom with 2 beds. Tommy always claimed the smaller one. I drop my bag and open the whiskey. The first drink burns, but the second one goes down easier. I'm on my 4th when I smell something strange. Pancakes. It smells exactly like the pancakes I used to make for Tommy on Saturday mornings. Sweet, with just a little bit of cinnamon. But I haven't cooked anything. I haven't even unpacked yet. I walk to the kitchen, but the stove is cold. Nothing on the counter, no pans in the sink. But the smell is getting stronger. Must be my imagination, I say out loud, just to hear a voice in this quiet place. That night I sit on the porch with the bottle, watching the sun go down. The forest is so quiet it makes my ears ring. Back home there's always noise, cars, people, life happening. Here there's just me and my thoughts. That's when I hear it. "Daddy, Daddy, I'm lost." I drop the bottle. It crashes on the wooden porch, whiskey everywhere. It's Tommy's voice, clear as day, coming from the forest. "Daddy, where are you? I can't find you." My heart starts beating so fast it hurts. I know it's not real. Tommy is dead. I saw his body. I was at his funeral, but the voice sounds so much like him. "Tommy!" I call out, standing up so fast I almost fall over. "Daddy, help me!" The voice is coming from near the creek. I grab a flashlight and run into the woods, stumbling over roots and rocks. My head is spinning from the whiskey, but I keep running. "Tommy, where are you?" I reach the creek, breathing hard. The water looks black in the moonlight. I shine my flashlight everywhere, behind trees, under bushes, along the water's edge, nothing. But then I see them. Footprints in the mud by the creek. Small footprints, about the size of an 8-year-old boy's shoes. I get down on my knees and touch one of the prints. It's fresh. The mud is still soft around the edges. "This isn't real," I whisper to myself. "This can't be real." I follow the footprints along the creek. They're perfect, little sneaker prints, just like the ones Tommy used to make when we went fishing. They go for about 20 feet, right to the spot where Tommy caught his first fish 2 summers before he died. Then they just stop. The footprints end right at the water's edge, like whoever made them just walked into the creek and disappeared. I stand there for a long time, shining my light on the water. The creek is only about 3 feet deep here. If someone had walked in, I would see them, but there's nothing, just dark water moving slowly over the rocks. "Tommy," I whisper. The forest stays quiet. I walk back to the cabin, but I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I hear that voice, calling for me. I sit on the couch until morning, drinking and thinking about those footprints. Maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe 3 years of guilt and whiskey have finally broken my brain. Maybe that's what happens when you kill your own child. But those footprints look so real. I wake up on the couch around noon. My neck hurts and my mouth tastes like old whiskey. The empty bottle is on the floor next to me. For a minute I forget where I am. Then it all comes back. The cabin, the voice, those footprints by the creek. I tell myself it was just a dream. Too much drinking and not enough sleep. That's all. I make some coffee and sit on the porch. The morning sun feels good on my face. Everything looks normal in the daylight, just trees and water and birds singing. No ghosts, no dead children calling my name. I'm starting to feel better when I see it. There on the porch steps is a small red toy car. I know that car, Tommy's favorite Hot Wheels. A little red Ferrari he carried everywhere. I bought it for him at the gas station when he was 6. He even slept with it sometimes. I buried that car with him. My hands shake as I pick it up. It's exactly the same. Tiny dents on the hood, a scratch on the door from when Tommy dropped it on the kitchen floor. Even the wheels turn the same way. But this is impossible. I put that car in Tommy's hands at the funeral. I watched them close. The coffin. I was there when they put him in the ground, so how is it here? I look around the yard, expecting to see someone playing a cruel joke on me. But there's nobody here. Just me and the trees and this little red car that shouldn't exist. "Get it together, Jack," I say to myself. "You're losing your mind." I throw the car into the woods as hard as I can. It disappears into the bushes with a small crash. That night I try to stay awake. I sit by the window with another bottle, watching the forest. If someone is messing with me, I'll catch them. Around midnight, I hear it again. "Daddy?" The voice is closer this time. Not from the woods, but right outside the cabin. "Daddy, why did you hurt me?" I freeze. The voice sounds different now, sadder, angry. "Daddy, why did you kill me?" I want to run, but my legs won't move. I can barely breathe. Then I see a face in the window. Tommy's face, pale and thin with dark circles under his eyes. But something's wrong with those eyes. They're too black, too hungry. "Why didn't you love me enough to stop drinking?" The thing with Tommy's face asks. I scream and fall backwards off my chair. When I look up, the window is empty. I don't sleep that night, or the next night. By the 3rd day, I'm exhausted. I keep drinking, but it doesn't help anymore. I can't stop thinking about that face in the window. That's when I find the notebook. It's sitting on the kitchen table when I wake up from a short nap on the couch. A small blue notebook that wasn't there before. My name is written on the cover, in my own handwriting. Inside, there are pages and pages of writing, all in my handwriting, but I don't remember writing any of it. The first entry is dated 2 days ago. "Tommy came to see me today. He looks just like he did before the accident. He asked why I brought him here. I told him I missed him. He said he missed me too, but he's so hungry now. Always hungry." I flip through more pages, more entries I don't remember writing. "We went fishing today. Tommy caught a big one. He laughed just like he used to, but when I looked closer, the fish was just bones and mud. Tommy says he forgives me, but he needs something from me. He won't tell me what yet. I think I've been sleepwalking. I woke up by the creek this morning. My clothes were muddy and I tasted something awful in my mouth, like raw meat. The last entry was written yesterday. Tommy isn't Tommy anymore. When he smiles, I can see too many teeth. When he talks, his voice echoes like it's coming from deep underground. But I can't stop talking to him. He's all I have left. I slam the notebook shut. My heart is beating so fast I think it might stop. This is crazy. I'm going crazy. Dead people don't come back. Little boys don't visit their fathers. And I definitely don't write things I can't remember. But the handwriting is mine. Every letter looks exactly the way I write. That night I tie myself to my bed with rope. If I'm sleepwalking, this will stop me. I need to know what's real and what's not. I wake up standing by the creek. The rope is still around my waist, but it's been chewed through. Not cut, chewed. I can see the tooth marks in the rope. Human tooth marks. I look at my hands. There are bits of rope fiber under my fingernails, and my mouth tastes like blood. Standing there in the dark, with the creek flowing past my feet, I realize something terrible. I don't think I'm going crazy. I think something is very, very wrong with this place, and it's been getting worse every night since I arrived. I spend the next day trying to figure out what to do. I could leave, pack up my stuff, and drive home. But what's waiting for me there? An empty apartment and a job I already lost because I couldn't stop drinking. At least here, I feel close to Tommy, even if it's not really him. That afternoon, I do something stupid. I call Sarah. Sarah is my ex-wife, Tommy's mother. She hasn't talked to me since the funeral. Can't blame her for that. The phone rings 3 times before she answers. Jack. Her voice sounds surprised. Is everything okay? I'm at Uncle Pete's cabin, I say. The one up north, remember? We used to bring Tommy here. There's a long pause. Jack, you're scaring me. Why are you calling? I think I'm ready, I tell her, ready to get sober, ready to face what I did, but I can't do it alone. Another pause. I can hear her breathing on the other end. Jack, we've been through this before. How many times have you promised to quit drinking? This time is different. I swear it is. Something's happening to me here. Something I can't explain. But it's making me see things clearly for the first time in 3 years. What kind of things? I almost tell her about Tommy's voice, about the toy car, about the notebook. But she'll think I'm crazy. Maybe I am crazy. Just things. Please, Sarah. I know I don't deserve your help. But I'm asking anyway. She's quiet for a long time. When she speaks again, her voice is softer. Okay, I'll drive up tomorrow evening, but Jack, if this is just another one of your games, it's not. I promise. After I hang up, I feel something I haven't felt in years. Hope. Maybe Sarah and I can't fix our marriage, but maybe we can help each other heal. Maybe we can both stop hurting so much. That night, I don't drink. I want to be sober when Sarah gets here. I want to show her I'm serious this time. But around midnight, I hear Tommy's voice again. Daddy? Who was that on the phone? I'm sitting on the porch, and the voice comes from the darkness near the trees. Was that Mommy? Is Mommy coming to see us? Something about the way he says us makes my skin crawl. Tommy, I call out. Is that really you? A small figure steps out from behind a tree. It looks like Tommy, but the moonlight makes his skin look grey. His clothes are dirty and torn. I'm so hungry, Daddy. I've been hungry for so long. Hungry for what? For the bad feelings, the guilt, the shame. Feed me, Daddy, like you've been doing. I don't understand what he means. Tommy, I don't know how to feed you. You're dead. The thing that looks like my son tilts its head. Am I? Then what have we been doing these past few days? Who wrote in that notebook? My blood turns cold. That was you? That was us, Daddy. We've been sharing, but I need more now. I need someone who loves you, someone who carries guilt too. No. I stand up, backing toward the cabin door. No, you can't have Sarah. Tommy's face changes. His smile gets wider, showing too many teeth. But she's perfect, Daddy. She blames herself for not stopping you, or from drinking. She thinks if she'd been a better wife, I'd still be alive. All that guilt, it tastes so good. I run inside and lock the door, but I can still hear Tommy's voice through the walls. Don't worry, Daddy. Tomorrow night we'll all be together again, just like a real family. The next evening, Sarah's car pulls up just as the sun is setting. I watch her get out, and for a moment she looks just like she did when we first met. Beautiful and kind and full of life. "Hi, Jack," she says, walking up to the porch. She's trying to smile, but I can see how nervous she is. "Hi. Thanks for coming." We sit on the porch and talk, really talk, for the first time since Tommy died. She tells me about her job, about how she's been going to therapy. I tell her about the drinking, about how sorry I am, about how I want to change. "I dream about him every night," she says. "Tommy, he's always asking me why I didn't protect him." "Sarah, it wasn't your fault. It was mine. All mine." She starts crying. "But I knew you were drinking more. I should have left you earlier. I should have taken Tommy away from you." I want to comfort her, but I don't know how. We've both been carrying this guilt for so long. As it gets darker, Sarah starts yawning. "I should get some sleep. It was a long drive." "You can take the bedroom. I'll sleep on the couch." But around midnight I hear voices outside. Sarah's voice and another voice. A child's voice. "Mummy, come play with me." "Tommy? Tommy, is that you?" I jump up and run outside. Sarah is walking toward the creek in her pajamas. She's smiling, but her eyes look empty. "Daddy wants to play our old game by the creek," the voice says. "The one where we catch fish in the dark." "Sarah, stop!" I yell, running after her, but she keeps walking like she can't hear me. She's almost at the water's edge when I tackle her. We both fall to the ground, and Sarah screams. But it's not Sarah's scream. It's something else, something angry and hungry. I look up and see it. The thing standing by the creek is huge, 12 feet tall, with long, thin arms and legs like tree branches. Its skin is gray and rotting. But the worst part is its face. It has Tommy's face, but stretched and twisted. The eyes are completely black, and the mouth is full of sharp teeth. "You can't stop me, Daddy," it says in Tommy's voice. "I'm part of you now. I've been feeding on your guilt for 3 years. Every person you've brought here has made me stronger." "What are you talking about? This is the first time I've been here since Tommy died." The creature laughs, and the sound makes my bones hurt. "Is it, Daddy? What about Uncle Pete? What about your sister Mary? What about the mailman who came looking for Pete last winter? You don't remember because I was driving. I was using your body while you slept." I feel sick. "No, that's not true." "Feel your pockets, Daddy." With shaking hands, I reach into my jacket pocket. There's something there. Something small and hard. Car keys. Keys I don't recognize. "Those are Pete's keys," the creature says, "and Mary's, and 6 other people you've brought here to feed me over the years. You've been my hunting dog, bringing me guilt and shame to eat." Sarah is crying beside me, finally able to see the monster for what it is. "And now," the creature continues, "it's time for dessert." I grab my rifle from inside the cabin and shoot at the creature. The bullet hits it right in the chest, but the hole closes up immediately. Black blood drips out for a second, then stops. "You can't kill me, Daddy," says, still using Tommy's voice. "I'm already dead, and so are you." "What do you mean?" The creature walks closer. With each step it gets smaller, until it looks like Tommy again. Normal Tommy, the way he was before the accident. "Don't you remember, Daddy? You died 3 years ago, right here by this creek. You came here after my funeral, just like you. Came here now. You drank a whole bottle of pills with your whiskey. You wanted to join me." I shake my head. "No, that's not true. I'm alive. I'm right here." "Your body is here," Tommy says, "but Jack Miller died that night. What's been walking around in your skin is me. I've been using you to bring people here, people who feel guilty, people who taste good." Sarah is staring at me with wide, scared eyes. "Jack, what is it talking about?" "I don't know," I whisper. But deep down, I'm starting to remember things. Strange things. "Remember Uncle Pete, Daddy? You called him and said you needed help. He drove all the way up here to save you. But I was so hungry, and he felt so guilty about not visiting Mom before she died. Images flash in my mind. Pete arriving at the cabin, Pete sitting by the fire crying about our mother, Pete's face getting pale and thin as something invisible fed on his sadness. And your sister Mary. She came looking for Pete when he didn't come home. She felt so guilty for fighting with him before he left. Guilt tastes like candy, Daddy. More memories. Mary knocking on the door, Mary hugging me, crying about Pete, Mary's body by the creek, empty and cold. No, I say, but my voice sounds weak. I would remember killing people. You didn't kill them, Daddy. I did. You just brought them here and watched while I ate their guilt. Then you forgot, because forgetting was easier than knowing what you'd become. I look at my hands. In the moonlight, I can see that my fingernails are longer than they should be, sharper, and there's something dark under them that looks like dried blood. Jack, Sarah whispers. Your eyes. I turn to look at her and she backs away. What about my eyes? They're black, completely black. I run to the creek and look at my reflection in the water. She's right. My eyes are black holes in my face. And my teeth. When did my teeth get so sharp? It's happening faster now, Tommy says. The change. You're becoming more like me every day. Soon you won't be Jack at all. You'll just be hunger. I touch my face and my skin feels cold. Too cold. When did I stop feeling warm? How long? I ask. How long what, Daddy? How long? Have I been dead? Tommy smiles, and I can see my own sharp teeth reflected in his. 3 years. You died the night after my funeral, overdose of guilt and sleeping pills. But I couldn't let you go. I needed you. So I kept your body moving, kept it breathing, made it look alive. But I have a job. I have an apartment. People see me. Do they, Daddy? When's the last time someone really looked at you? When's the last time someone touched you? When's the last time you felt truly warm, or truly cold, or truly hungry for real food? I try to remember, but I can't. The last 3 years feel like a dream, like watching someone else's life through foggy glass. The people at work, I say, they fired me. They fired Jack Miller, Tommy agrees, but Jack Miller died 3 years ago. What they fired was a ghost that came to work every day, getting thinner and quieter until nobody noticed him anymore. Sarah is crying now. This isn't real. This can't be real. But I know it is. I can feel the truth of it in my bones, or what's left of them. Why Sarah? I ask. Why did you make me call her? Because I'm still growing, Daddy. Still getting stronger. And she has so much guilt about me, about you, about not saving our family. She'll taste amazing. No, I step between Tommy and Sarah. I won't let you hurt her. You can't stop me. You are me. Look at your hands, Daddy. I look down. My hands are changing, getting longer and thinner. The skin is turning grey. Look at your reflection. I look back at the creek. The thing looking back at me isn't Jack Miller anymore. It's something else, something hungry and cold and dead. Welcome home, Daddy, Tommy says. Now help me with Mommy. She's going to make us both so much stronger. But somewhere deep inside this dying body, the real Jack Miller is still screaming, still fighting, still trying to protect the woman he loves. The question is there enough of him left to matter? I look at Sarah, and for just a moment my eyes turn brown again, human again. Run, I whisper. Please, Sarah, run. Sarah doesn't run. She just stares at me with tears in her eyes. Jack, fight this thing. I know you're still in there somewhere. There is no Jack anymore, Mommy, Tommy says. There's only us now, only the hunger. But I can feel something inside me. Something small and warm and human. It's fighting to stay alive. Sarah, I say, and my voice sounds more like me for a moment. Get in your car. Drive away. Don't come back. I'm not leaving you. I'm already gone, I shout, and the sound echoes across the water. Can't you see that? I'm dead, Sarah. I've been dead for 3 years. She takes a step toward me. Then how are you talking to me right now? I don't have an answer for that. All I know is that the warm feeling inside me is getting smaller. The hunger is getting stronger. Because love is stronger than death, she says. Because the real Jack is still fighting. Tommy laughs. Love didn't save him from guilt. Love didn't stop him from drinking. Love didn't keep him from killing me. You're right, Sarah says, looking at the thing wearing my son's face. But love brought him here. Love made him call me, and love is going to save us both. She walks over to me and takes my cold, changing hands in hers. I forgive you, Jack, she whispers, for everything, for the drinking, for the accident, for Tommy. I forgive you. The words hit me like lightning. I haven't heard those words in 3 years. I never thought I'd hear them. I forgive myself too, she continues, for not stopping you sooner, for not protecting Tommy better, for hating you when I should have helped you. Something happens when she says that. The darkness inside me flickers. The hunger gets confused. No, Tommy snarls. Guilt feeds me. Shame makes me strong. You can't just forgive it away. But Sarah keeps talking. Tommy, if you're really our son, then you know we loved you. We made mistakes, but we loved you more than anything in the world. The creature that looks like Tommy starts to change. It gets taller again, more twisted. Its face isn't Tommy's anymore. I'm not your son, it growls. I never was. I'm just something that feeds on pain, on broken families, on people who hate themselves. Then you have no power here, Sarah says firmly, because we don't hate ourselves anymore. No, the creature screams, and the sound makes the trees shake, but it's getting smaller, weaker. I feel the warmth inside me growing, the real me, the part that loved my son and my wife and wanted to be better. Sarah, I say, and my voice sounds human again. I need to do something important. I walk over to the cabin and grab a can of gasoline from the shed. Uncle Pete kept it for the generator. What are you doing? Sarah asks. Ending this. I start pouring gasoline around the cabin. This place is poisoned. It feeds on guilt. And sadness, it needs to burn. The creature tries to stop me, but it's too weak now. Without our guilt to feed on, it's just a shadow. You can't destroy me, it whispers. I'll find others, other broken people, other dead children to wear like masks. Maybe, I say, lighting a match. But not here, not anymore. The cabin catches. Fire quickly. The flames are bright and warm and clean. They burn away 3 years of lies and hunger and pretending to be alive. As the fire grows, I feel myself getting lighter. The darkness inside me is burning away too. Jack, Sarah says, what's happening to you? I look at my hands. They're becoming see-through, fading. I'm going where I should have gone 3 years ago, I tell her. I'm finally letting go. Will I see you again? I smile, and for the first time in years, it feels real. Maybe, but not here. Somewhere better. Somewhere the dead can rest. The creature makes one last try to grab Sarah, but it passes right through her. It's nothing now, just smoke in the wind. Tell people about this place, I say as I fade away. Make sure nobody else comes here looking for their dead children. I will. The last thing I see is Sarah walking to her car, safe and alive and free. But that's not the end of the story. 2 weeks later, Sarah gets a phone call. Hello, Mrs. Miller. This is Detective Barnes. We found your ex-husband's car at the bottom of Pine Lake, about 50 miles from that cabin. Looks like he's been dead for 3 years. But here's the strange part. Sarah's blood turns cold. What? Someone's been using his credit cards. Someone's been living in his apartment. The landlord says Jack Miller paid rent just last week. But that's impossible if he's been dead for 3 years. Sarah hangs up the phone. Her hands are shaking. That night, her phone rings again. The caller ID says Jack Miller. She doesn't answer, but the next morning there's a message on her voicemail. It's Jack's voice, but it sounds wrong. Younger, hungrier. Hi, Sarah. It's me. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think I'm ready to get sober. I'm at my mother's house now. She's taking care of me, but I'm so hungry, Sarah. So very hungry. Will you come visit us? Mom would love to see you again. Sarah deletes the message and changes her phone number. But sometimes late at night she wonders about Jack's mother, the woman who died 5 years ago. And she wonders who answered the phone when something wearing Jack's face called her. The hunger is always looking for new faces to wear, new families to break, new guilt to feed on. And it's very, very patient. My name is Lisa Hayes, and I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life. I'm 27 years old, and I've been running from the same nightmare for 20 years. Today, I'm driving straight back into it. The snow is falling hard as I pull my truck up to Glacier Point Campground. My hands shake on the steering wheel, but not from the cold. I know this place. I know every tree, every rock, every shadow. This is where my family came camping when I was 7 years old. This is where everything went wrong. I turn off the engine and sit in the quiet. The only sound is snow hitting my windshield. The campground looks different in winter. Empty and dead. No laughing families, no kids running around. Just me and 20 empty cabins covered in white. I'm here because I got a job as the winter ranger. That's what I tell myself anyway. The pay is good, and someone needs to watch the place during the off-season. But that's not the real reason I'm here. The real reason is that I'm sick of being afraid. For 20 years, I've had the same dream every single night. My little brother Danny is running toward me through the trees. Something dark is chasing him. He's screaming my name, begging me to help him. And I just stand there and watch. That's what I did in real life too. I watched my 7-year-old brother get killed, and I did nothing to stop it. I grabbed my bags from the truck and walked toward the main lodge. My boots crunch in the snow. The sound reminds me of something else crunching 20 years ago. But I push that memory away. The lodge is bigger than I remember. It's made of dark wood and stone, with big windows that look out at the forest. In summer, those windows would show families having picnics and kids playing by the lake. Now they just show endless white and bare black trees. I find the key where they said it would be, under a fake rock by the front door. My hands are shaking so bad I can barely get the key in the lock. Inside, the lodge smells like old wood and dust. There's a big fireplace in the main room, with couches and chairs arranged around it. Everything is covered in white sheets, like ghosts. I walk down the hallway, looking for the room where I'll be staying. The doors are all numbered, door after door, until I reach the end of the hall. Room 7. My stomach drops. Of course it's room 7. Of course I have to stay in the same room where my family slept that last week. The week before Danny died. I want to turn around and leave. I want to get back in my truck and drive away, as fast as I can. But I don't. I can't keep running forever. I unlock the door and step inside. The room looks exactly the same. 2 beds with red blankets, a small table between them, a window that looks out at the forest. This is where I slept next to Danny, listening to him talk about all the adventures we were going to have. This is where he told me he wasn't scared of anything because his big sister would always protect him. I drop my bags on the floor and sit on one of the beds. The mattress squeaks just like it did 20 years ago. Outside, the wind is getting stronger. It makes a sound like someone crying, or maybe someone calling for help. I tell myself I'm here to get better, to face my fears and move on with my life. My therapist said it might help to go back to where it all started. She said sometimes you have to walk through the fire to get to the other side. But sitting here now, I think she was wrong. Some fires are too hot. Some places are better left alone. The snow keeps falling outside my window. Soon it will be dark and I'll be all alone. In this place where my brother died, where I failed him. I should have stayed home. I should have known that coming back here wouldn't fix anything. You can't change the past by visiting it. But it's too late now. I'm here, and something tells me I won't be leaving anytime soon. The wind gets louder, and for just a second, it sounds like a little boy calling my name. Lisa. I shake my head. It's just the wind. It has to be. I get up to close the curtains, but I stop when I see something in the forest. A shadow moving between the trees. It's too big to be a person, but it's walking on two legs. I blink and it's gone. Just the wind and the snow and my imagination. That's all. I close the curtains tight and try not to think about how much this room feels like a trap. I don't sleep much my first night in room 7. Every time I close my eyes, I hear sounds outside, branches breaking, something walking around the lodge. I tell myself it's just animals looking for food. Bears sleep in winter, but maybe a deer or something. When morning comes, I feel a little better. Sunlight makes everything seem normal again. I make coffee in the small kitchen and eat some cereal, just regular morning things. My job is pretty simple. Walk around the campground twice a day, check that no pipes are frozen, make sure no one is camping here who shouldn't be. Write down anything strange in a logbook. The first few days are quiet. I walk the trails, check the empty cabins, and try not to think about the past. The snow is deep, and my boots leave the only footprints anywhere. On the 4th day, something changes. I'm walking back to the lodge after my evening check when I hear it. A voice calling from the woods. Lisa! Lisa! Help me! I stop walking. My heart starts beating fast. It sounds like a little boy. It sounds exactly like Danny. Hello? I call back. Is someone there? Nothing. Just wind in the trees. I wait for a few minutes, listening hard. But there's only silence. I shake my head and keep walking. It was probably just the wind. Wind can sound like voices sometimes, but that night I hear it again. I'm in my room, reading a book, when the voice comes through the window. Lisa, where are you? I'm scared. I jump up and run to the window. I pull back the curtains and look out at the dark forest. Danny? I whisper. The voice comes again, fainter now. Help me, Lisa. Please help me. My hands are shaking as I grab my flashlight and coat. I know it can't be Danny. Danny has been dead for 20 years, but the voice sounds so real, so much like him. I go outside and shine my light into the trees. The beam cuts through the darkness, but I don't see anything. Where are you? I call. Keep talking so I can find you. But there's no answer, just my own voice echoing back at me. I stand there for a long time, sweeping my flashlight back and forth. The cold starts getting to me, and finally I go back inside, but I don't sleep that night. The next morning, I find something that makes my blood turn cold. There are handprints on my bedroom window, small handprints, like a child made them, but they're on the inside of the glass. I stare at them for a long time. They look like they were made with something red, something that looks like blood. My room is on the 2nd floor. There's no way someone could have climbed up and put handprints on the inside of my window. It's impossible. I clean them off with paper towels, but my hands won't stop shaking. The red stuff doesn't smell like paint or anything normal. It smells like metal, like blood. That night the voice comes again. This time it's closer. Lisa, I'm lost. I can't find my way back. I don't go outside this time. I sit on my bed with my flashlight in my hands and try to think of normal reasons for what's happening. Maybe I'm more stressed than I thought. Maybe being back here is making me hear things that aren't there. That happens sometimes when people are really upset, but the voice sounds so real, so scared. I'm in the woods, Lisa. It's dark and I can't see. Please come find me. I squeeze my eyes shut and put my hands over my ears. You're not real, I say out loud. Danny is dead. This isn't happening. But the voice keeps calling all night long. The next day, I find more handprints. Not just on my window this time, they're on windows all over the lodge. Small, bloody handprints pressed against the glass from the inside. I clean them all off, but they come back the next night, and the next. By the end of the week, I'm barely sleeping. The voice calls to me every night, and every morning I find new handprints. Sometimes they're up high, on windows I can't even reach without a ladder. I think about calling someone, my boss, or maybe the police. But what would I say? That I'm hearing my dead brother's voice and finding ghost handprints? They'd think I was crazy. Maybe I am crazy. On the 7th night, something different happens. I'm lying in bed trying to ignore the voice outside when I hear footsteps in the hallway. Small footsteps, like a child walking around. The footsteps stop right outside my door. Then I hear a soft knock. Lisa! The voice is right there, just on the other side of the door. Lisa, can you let me in? I'm cold. I don't move. I don't even breathe. The doorknob turns slowly. But I locked that door. I know I locked it. The door opens just a little bit. Cold air flows into the room. Lisa, the voice whispers, why won't you help me? I grab my flashlight and point it at the door. The beam of light cuts through the darkness, but there's nothing there, just the open door and cold air. But I can smell something now, something that makes my stomach sick. It smells like wet dog and fear. I get up and close the door, lock it again, but I know it won't matter. Whatever this is, it's getting stronger, and it's not going to leave me alone. I start having the dream again on my 2nd week here. It's the same dream I've had every night for 20 years. Danny is running through the trees toward me. Something dark is chasing him. He's crying and calling my name. I want to help him, but my feet won't move. I just stand there and watch. But now the dream feels different, more real. I can feel the cold air on my face. I can smell the pine trees and the fear. When Danny reaches out to me, I can almost touch his hand. Then I wake up. The first time it happens, I think it's just because I'm back in this place. Bad memories make bad dreams worse. That makes sense. But when I wake up, there's dirt under my fingernails and pine needles in my hair. I sit up in bed and stare at my hands. The dirt is dark and wet, like I've been digging in the ground. The pine needles are fresh and green. I get up and check my feet. They're dirty too, and cold, like I've been walking outside without shoes. My heart starts beating fast. I look at my bedroom door. It's wide open, even though I know I locked it before bed. I walk to the window and pull back the curtains. Outside in the snow, I can see footprints leading away from the lodge. Small footprints, like a woman made them. They go straight into the forest. The footprints are mine. I know they are, even though I don't remember making them. I've been sleepwalking. The next night, I try to stay awake. I drink coffee and read books and do jumping jacks whenever I feel tired. But around 3 in the morning, my eyes get too heavy. I wake up outside. I'm standing in the middle of the forest wearing only my pajamas. Snow is falling on my bare feet, but I'm not cold. I feel warm, like I've been running. I'm in a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. I know this place. This is where it happened. This is where Danny died 20 years ago. The ground looks different here, like someone has been digging. There are holes everywhere, small and shallow, like a dog has been burying bones. I turn around to go back to the lodge, but I stop when I see something moving in the trees. It's big, bigger than a person. It's walking on 2 legs, but it moves wrong, like it's not used to walking that way. I can't see it clearly in the dark, but I can see its eyes. They shine yellow in the moonlight, like an animal's eyes. It's watching me. I don't move. I don't even breathe. We stare at each other for what it feels like forever. Then it makes a sound, not a growl or a howl. It sounds like laughing, but wrong, like a person trying to laugh with a mouthful of teeth. I run through the trees, branches scratching my arms and face. I can hear it, behind me, following. Its feet hit the ground heavy, like it weighs much more than it should. I make it back to the lodge and slam the door behind me. I lock it and push a chair against it. Then I sit on the floor and shake until morning comes. But I know the locks won't keep it out. If it wanted to get in, it would find a way. The sleepwalking gets worse after that. Every night I wake up in the clearing. Every night I see the thing watching me from the trees. Sometimes there are more than one. I count 3, then 4, then 5 pairs of yellow eyes staring at me from the darkness. They're getting braver, coming closer. On the 5th night, I wake up and one of them is standing right next to me. It's huge, maybe 7 feet tall. It looks like a wolf, but it's standing up like a person. Its fur is dark and matted, and it smells like wet dog and something rotten. Its face is the worst part. It has a wolf's head, but the eyes are too smart, too human. When it looks at me, I feel like it can see inside my thoughts. It reaches out with one long, clawed hand and touches my face. Its claws are sharp and cold. "Lisa," it says in Danny's voice, "why didn't you save me?" I try to scream, but no sound comes out. The thing tilts its head like a dog listening to something far away. "You let me die," it says. "You watched, and you did nothing." Then it steps back and fades away like smoke in the wind. I wake up in my bed, but I can still feel where its claws touch my face. When I look in the mirror, there are 4 thin red lines on my cheek. I try to tell myself it was just a dream, but the scratches are real, and there's mud on my sheets. The next night, I tie myself to the bed with rope. I figure if I can't walk, I can't sleepwalk, but I wake up in the clearing anyway, with pieces of rope still tied around my wrists. The creatures are waiting for me, all 5 of them, standing in a circle around the spot where Danny died. This time they don't hide in the shadows. This time I can see them clearly. They look like wolves, but wrong. Too big, too smart, with ends instead of paws. Their fur is the color of old blood, and their teeth are white and sharp. The biggest one steps forward. When it talks, its voice sounds like Danny, but also like something else, something hungry. "We've been waiting for you to come back, Lisa. We've been waiting for 20 years. I want to run, but my legs won't move. It's just like in my dreams." "You know what you did," the creature says. "You know what you are." The others start moving closer. They walk in a circle around me like they're hunting. "A coward," one of them says in Danny's voice. "A failure," says another. "You let your little brother die. You hid and watched. You did nothing." Their voices get louder and louder until they're all talking at once, saying the same things I've been telling myself for 20 years. Then they all stop talking at the same time. The biggest one leans down close to my face. Its breath smells like death. "And now," it whispers, "you're going to pay." I close my eyes and wait for them to kill me. But when I open them, I'm back, in my bed, but I know it wasn't a dream, because I can still smell them on my skin, wet dog and fear and something else. Something that smells like time itself is rotting. On my 3rd week here, I start hearing my own voice. I'm doing my evening walk around the campground when it happens. I'm checking cabin 12 when I hear a little girl screaming in the woods. "Danny, run! Run, Danny!" I freeze. That's my voice, but not my voice now, my voice from when I was 7 years old. The screaming is coming from the forest, from the direction of the clearing where Danny died. I follow the sound, my flashlight, shaking in my hands. As I get closer, I can hear more voices. A little boy crying, a man yelling, a woman screaming for help. These are the voices from that day 20 years ago, from the day my family went camping and everything went wrong. I reach the edge of the clearing and stop. What I see makes my mind go blank. There's Danny, my 7-year-old brother, running through the trees just like in my dreams. Behind him, something dark is chasing him, something with too many teeth. And there, hiding behind a big pine tree, is me, 7-year-old me, watching it all happen. I'm seeing the past, right here, right now, like it's happening all over again. I try to run forward to save Danny this time, but I can't move. It's like there's a wall of glass between me and what's happening. I watch my little brother trip and fall. I watch the dark thing catch him. I watch myself do nothing, just like I did 20 years ago. Then everything fades away, and I'm alone in the empty clearing. But the smell stays. That wet dog smell, but stronger now. And something else. Something that smells like fear and shame, and things that should stay buried. When I get back to the lodge, I find bloody handprints on every window. But these prints are different. They're not small like a child's hands. They're huge, with long fingers that end in claws. And they're still wet. I spend the night cleaning them off, but they keep coming back. As soon as I clean one window, new prints appear on another. By morning, I'm so tired I can barely stand. But I have to keep cleaning. I can't let anyone see this if they come to check on me. That's when I hear the radio crackling in the main office. I walk over to listen. It's dispatch calling for someone to respond to an emergency. "We have a missing child at Glacier Point Campground," the voice says. "7-year-old boy, last seen near the lake. All units respond." My heart stops. I grab the radio. "This is Lisa at Glacier Point. What's the date on that call?" Silence. Then the voice comes back confused. "Ma'am, we show no one at that location. Campground's been closed for 3 weeks." I look at the calendar on the wall. It shows this year, this month, this week. But the voice on the radio sounds far away, like it's coming from a long time ago. "What year is this call from?" I ask. More silence. Then the radio goes dead. I check the logbook where I'm supposed to write down everything that happens. The last entry is from 3 weeks ago when I arrived. But I know I've been writing, in it every day. All the pages after that first day are blank. I grab a pen and try to write today's date. The ink won't stick to the paper. It just rolls off like water. That's when I understand. Time isn't working right here. Past and present are getting mixed up, like colors bleeding together in the rain. The creatures, those dog things, they're not just from now. They're from then too. They've been here all along, waiting for me to come back. That night, I don't even try to stay awake. I know I'll end up in the clearing no matter what I do. When I wake up, I'm standing in the same spot where Danny died. But this time, something's different. There's a body lying in the snow. It's small, like a child, wearing the blue jacket Danny had on that day. The jacket has tears in it, like something with claws ripped it open. I know I shouldn't look, but I can't help myself. I kneel down and turn the body over. It's Danny, but he looks exactly the same as he did 20 years ago, like he just died today. His eyes are open, staring at nothing. There are bite marks on his neck and arms, deep and terrible bites that no animal in these woods could make. "Danny," I whisper, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But he doesn't answer. Dead people don't talk. Then I hear breathing behind me. Slow, heavy breathing that sounds like it's coming from something very big. I turn around. All 5 of the dog creatures are standing there watching me. But now I can see them clearly, and they're even worse than I thought. They're not just big wolves walking on 2 legs. They're something else. Something that was never meant to exist. Their bodies flicker and fade, like old movies where the film is damaged. Sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're now, sometimes they're 20 years ago. The biggest one steps forward. When it talks, its voice is Danny's, but also mine from when I was 7. "We smell it on you," it says. "The same smell you had that day." "What smell?" I ask, even though I think I know. "Fear," it says, "and something else. Something that makes us hungry." The others start moving closer. They sniff the air like dogs picking up a scent. "Cowardice," one of them says. "Guilt," says another. "Shame. Failure. It's been getting stronger all these years," the biggest one says. "Every night you dream about that day. Every time you blame yourself, every time you wish you could go back and be brave. They're right up close to me now. I can feel their hot breath on my face. You've been feeding us for 20 years, it says. And now you're here, right where it happened. The smell is so strong we can taste it. I want to run, but there's nowhere to go. I want to fight, but I know I can't win. What do you want, I ask. The creature smiles, showing teeth like broken glass. We want you to choose, it says. Save him and take his place, or let him die again and become one of us. I look down at Danny's body in the snow. His dead eyes reflect the moonlight. How can I save him? He's already dead. Time isn't real here, the creature says. Past and present, they're the same thing. You can go back to that day. You can be brave this time. But if you save him, you die instead. You take his place in the ground. I look at the creatures surrounding me. Their yellow eyes glow with hunger. And if I don't, then you become like us, a thing that feeds on fear, a thing that hunts cowards across time. The wind picks up, making the trees sway. Snow starts falling harder. Choose, the creature says, but choose now. Dawn is coming, and we're getting hungry. I look at Danny one more time. My baby brother who trusted me to keep him safe. I know what I have to do. But I also know that no matter what I choose, nothing will ever be the same. I'm about to answer when something strange happens. The air around me starts to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The clearing begins to change. I see myself at 7 years old hiding behind the tree. She's so small and scared, wearing the pink coat Mom bought her for the trip. She's watching Danny run toward her just like I remember, but I also see myself at 17, a teenager visiting Danny's grave on the 10-year anniversary of his death. She's angry and bitter, blaming everyone but mostly herself. And there's me now, at 27, standing in the snow with 5 monster dogs circling around me. All 3 versions of me are here at the same time, in the same place. All of us looking at Danny's body, all of us carrying the same guilt. The biggest dog creature laughs that awful broken sound. Look at you, it says. 3 different times, but you're all the same. Still a coward, still running away. The 7-year-old me starts crying. The 17-year-old me starts yelling at the creatures, telling them to leave us alone. But her voice sounds hollow, like it's coming from far away. I try to reach out to them, to touch them, but my hand goes right through them like they're made of smoke. This is what we do, the creature says. We hunt across time. We find the moment when someone becomes a coward and we feed on it forever. More shapes start appearing in the clearing. I see my parents from that camping trip frantically searching for Danny. I see the police officers who came to help. I see the paramedics who couldn't save him, all of them moving like ghosts, doing the same things they did 20 years ago. Every night you dream about this day, the creature says. Every night we get stronger. Your fear feeds us across all these years. I watch 7-year-old me run away when she sees the dark shape catch Danny. I watch 17-year-old me leave flowers on his grave and promise to be braver next time. I watch all the times I failed him. But then I notice something else. There are other people here too. Other versions of other people from different times. I see a man in his 30s crying over a woman's body. I see a teenage girl running away from a car accident. I see an old woman closing her eyes instead of helping someone who's drowning. All of them are surrounded by the same dog creatures. All of them are reliving their worst moments over and over. You're not the only ones we hunt, the creature says, following my eyes. Fear has a smell that carries across time. Cowardice leaves a trail we can always follow. The radio in my pocket starts crackling. I pull it out and listen. Missing. Child at Glacier Point, a voice says. But it's not the same voice from before. It's different, older. 10-year-old girl missing at the lake, says another voice. Elderly man lost in the woods. Teenager fell through the ice. The voices keep coming, one after another. Different years, different people, but all of them from this same place. How long has this been happening? I ask. The creature's smile gets wider. Time doesn't work the way you think it does. We've been here forever, and we've been here for no time at all. Every coward who ever came to these woods, we're hunting them right now. I look around at all the ghost people reliving their failures. There are dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all stuck in their worst moments. The campground brings them back, the creature says. People return to the places where they failed. They think they can fix things, but they just make it easier for us to feed. 7-year-old me stops crying and looks right at me. Her eyes are wide and scared. Are you going to save Danny this time? She asks. Her voice sounds tiny in the cold air. I don't know how, I tell her. You have to try, says 17-year-old me. You have to do something. The creatures start moving closer again. Their eyes glow brighter in the darkness. Choose. Now, the biggest one says, save the boy and take his place, or become one of us and hunt other cowards forever. But before I can answer, something new happens. I hear more footsteps coming through the trees. Human footsteps. A woman walks into the clearing. She's wearing a park ranger uniform just like mine. She looks exactly like me, but older. Maybe 35 or 40. Lisa, she says in my voice, don't listen to them. Who are you? I ask. I'm you, she says, from 10 years in the future. I'm the Lisa who chose to live with the guilt instead of running from it. The dog creatures start growling. They don't like this new version of me. That's not possible, the biggest one says. We killed that timeline. We ate that future. Future. Me smiles sadly. You tried, but some choices create new paths. Some people find ways to break the cycle. She walks over to Danny's body and kneels down. When she touches him, her hand doesn't go through him like mine did. The truth is, she says, you can't change what happened that day. Danny died and you survived. That's just what happened. But I didn't save him, I say. You were 7 years old, she says. What could you have done against something like this? The creatures start backing away from her. They look scared now. The guilt you carry, future me says, it's not really about Danny. It's about something else. What? It's about the fact that you survived when he didn't. You feel guilty for being alive. She stands up and looks at all 3 versions of us, 7, 17, and 27. But being alive isn't a crime, and being scared doesn't make you a coward. The dog creatures start fading, becoming more like smoke than solid things. She's lying, the biggest one says, but its voice sounds weaker now. You are a coward. You always will be. Maybe, future me says, but cowards can still choose to be brave. She holds out her hand to me. Come on, Lisa. It's time to go home. I look at Danny's body one more time. He looks so small and peaceful in the snow. I'm sorry, I whisper to him. Then I take future me's hand. The moment our fingers touch, everything changes. The clearing disappears. The creatures disappear. All the ghost people disappear. I'm standing in my room at the lodge, holding my own hand, but I'm not alone. Because now I know the truth about what's been happening here, and the truth is worse than anything the creatures told me. I'm alone in my room, but something feels wrong. The future version of me is gone. The clearing is gone. Everything looks normal again. But my heart is still racing, and I can still smell that wet dog scent in the air. I walk to the window and look outside. It's morning now, but I don't remember. The night ending. The sun is shining on fresh snow, and everything looks peaceful. Too peaceful. I go to the mirror and look at myself. I look tired and scared, but I look real. I pinch my arm to make sure I'm awake. It hurts, so I must be. But something is still wrong. Something I can't put my finger on. I walk to the desk and pick up the phone to call my boss. Maybe I should quit this job and go home. Maybe I should get as far away from this place as possible. But when I pick up the phone, there's no dial tone, just silence. I try my cell phone, no signal. I check the calendar on the wall. It still shows the same date it showed yesterday, and the day before that. That's when I start to understand. I run to the logbook and flip through the pages. They're all blank except for the first day, when I wrote that I arrived safely. I grab a pen and try to write today's date. The ink won't stick to the paper. My hands start shaking. I run to the kitchen and check the food I bought 3 weeks ago. It's all still fresh, like I just bought it yesterday. The milk hasn't gone bad. The bread isn't stale. Nothing has changed. Because time isn't moving forward. It's stuck. I've been living the same winter over and over, and I never noticed. That's when I hear footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy footsteps that I recognize. The dog creatures are back. But this time when I see them, they look different, more real, but also more transparent. Like I'm seeing them clearly for the first time. The biggest one walks into my room without opening the door. It moves through the wall, like it's made of water. "Now you're beginning to understand," it says. In Danny's voice. "Understand what?" "What you really are." I back away from it, but there's nowhere to go. "The truth is," it says, "we're not real. We never were real." "What do you mean?" "We're inside your head, Lisa. We're part of you, the part that won't let go of that day." The room starts to change around me. The walls become transparent, and I can see outside, but outside isn't the campground anymore. It's a hospital room. I'm lying in a bed, hooked up to machines. My eyes are closed, and I'm not moving. "You've been here for 20 years, the creature says, "ever since the day Danny died. I see doctors and nurses walking around the bed where I'm lying. I see my parents, older now, sitting in chairs beside me. My mother is holding my hand and crying. You had a breakdown that day, the creature says. When you saw Danny die, your mind couldn't handle it. So you went somewhere else. You went inside. No, I say, that's not true. I'm here. I'm awake. You're in your own mind, Lisa. You've been living in your memories, playing them over and over, trying to find a way to change what happened. The hospital room fades away, and I'm back in my room at the lodge. But now I can see it's not real. The walls are made of thoughts and guilt and 20 years of wishing things were different. The campground job, I say. My life outside, my apartment. All made up, the creature says. Your mind created a story where you could come back here and face your fears, but you can't face them because they're not really about Danny. What are they about? They're about you, about the fact that you survived when he didn't, about the fact that part of you is glad it was him and not you. I want to deny it, but I can't, because deep down, I know it's true. Every night for 20 years you dream about that day, the creature says, and every morning you wake up and try to forget. But you can't forget, because forgetting would mean letting Danny go. I don't want to let him go. I know. That's why you're still here. That's why you keep feeding us. Feeding you what? Your guilt, your shame, your fear. We exist because you need us to exist. We're the punishment you think you deserve. I look around the room. Everything is starting to fade at the edges, like a photograph left in the sun too long. What happens if I stop feeding you? Then we disappear, and you have to choose. Choose. What? To wake up, or to stay here forever. The creature moves closer to me. Its yellow eyes are sad now instead of hungry. If you wake up, you have to live with what really happened. You have to accept that Danny is gone and it's not your fault. You have to forgive the 7-year-old girl who was too scared to save her brother. And if I stay, then you keep living the same winter forever. Keep trying to save him, Keep failing. Keep feeding us until there's nothing left of you. I sit down on the bed and put my head in my hands. I don't know how to forgive myself. Yes, you do, the creature says. But now its voice isn't Danny's anymore, it's mine. You've always known how. You just have to choose to do it. I look up at the creature. It's changing, becoming smaller and less frightening. Now it looks like a regular dog, with kind eyes and a wagging tail. The real Danny wouldn't want you to stay here, it says. He'd want you to live. He'd want you to be happy. How do you know? Because I'm not really a monster, Lisa. I'm you, the part of you that remembers how much Danny loved you, the part that knows he wouldn't blame you for what happened. The dog walks over to me and puts its head on my lap. It feels warm and real. It's time to go home, it says. I pet its fur and feel tears running down my face. I'm scared, I know, but being scared doesn't make you a coward, and you don't have to be brave all the time. I look around the room one more time. It's fading away now, becoming transparent like old memories. Will I remember this place? Some of it, but not the bad parts. You'll remember that you came here to say goodbye. The dog looks up at me with eyes that are no longer yellow. They're brown now, like Danny's were. Are you ready? I take a deep breath and nod. I'm ready. But as I reach out to touch the dog one more time, everything goes dark, and I realize there's one more truth I haven't faced yet. The hardest truth of all. When I wake up, I'm not in the hospital room. I'm back in the clearing where Danny died. But everything is different now. The snow is gone. The trees are green and full of leaves. It's summer, just like it was 20 years ago when my family came camping. I can hear voices in the distance, happy voices, kids playing by the lake. I'm wearing the same pink coat I had when I was 7, but it fits me now. I look down at my hands. They're small again. I'm a child, but I still remember everything. I remember being 27. I remember the hospital room. I remember the truth about the creatures. I start walking toward the voices. As I get closer, I can see my family having a picnic by the water. Mom is setting out sandwiches. Dad is reading a book. And there's Danny, 7 years old, throwing rocks into the lake. He sees me and waves. Lisa, come play with me. I want to run to him, but something holds me back, because I know what's going to happen next. In a few hours, he's going to chase a butterfly into the woods. Something is going to attack him, and I'm going to watch it happen. But this time, I know it's not real. This is still inside my mind. This is my last chance to say goodbye. I walk over to Danny. He's exactly like I remember him. Messy brown hair, big smile, grass stains on his shorts. Want to skip rocks? He asks. Sure, I say. We stand by the water, throwing flat stones and counting the skips. Danny laughs every time. One of his rocks bounces across the surface. Lisa, he says after a while, are you okay? You look sad. I sit down on a log and he sits next to me. Danny, I need to tell you something. What? Something bad is going to happen today, and I won't be able to stop it. He tilts his head like he's thinking. Is it really bad? Yes. The worst thing that could happen. Will you be okay? I start crying then. Not because I'm scared, but because even as a 7-year-old, he's more worried about me than himself. I don't know, I tell him. I've been carrying this sadness for a really long time. Danny puts his small hand on my arm. It's okay to be sad, he says, but you don't have to carry it forever. How do you know that? Because I love you, and people who love you don't want you to be sad all the time. I look at my little brother. He's so young, but somehow he understands things that took me 20 years to figure out. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, I whisper. You were just a kid, Lisa. Kids aren't supposed to save other kids. That's what grown-ups are for. But I hid. I watched it happen and I didn't do anything. You were scared. Being scared is normal. He stands up and holds out his hand. Come on, let's go back to Mom and Dad. We still have a few more hours. I take his hand and we walk back to the picnic. For the rest of the afternoon, we just act like a normal family. We eat sandwiches and play games and laugh at Dad's bad jokes. I try to memorize every second. The way Danny's eyes crinkle when he smiles. The sound of Mom humming while she packs up the food. The way Dad always forgets to put sunscreen on his nose. When the sun starts to get low, Danny looks at me. It's time, isn't it? I nod. Are you going to try to stop it? No, I say, because I finally understand. Some things just happen, and that doesn't make them anyone's fault. Danny smiles and gives me a hug. I'm proud of you, Lisa. For what? For finally being ready to let me go. The butterfly appears then, just like it did 20 years ago. It's bright yellow and beautiful. Danny sees it and his face lights up. Look, isn't it pretty? Yes, I say. It's very pretty. The butterfly flies toward the woods. Danny looks at me one more time. Will you remember the good parts, he asks. Yes. I'll remember how much you loved butterflies, and rock skipping, and terrible knock-knock jokes. Good. That's the important stuff. He follows the butterfly into the trees. I watch him go, but this time I don't feel afraid. I feel sad, but it's a different kind of sad. The kind that comes from loving someone so much that you're willing to let them go. I hear the sounds from the woods, the growling, the crying, the silence, but I don't go look. Instead, I sit with Mom and Dad until it's over. When the park rangers find Danny's body, I cry. We all cry. But I don't hide this time. I don't run away from the sadness. Because sadness isn't something to be afraid of. It's just love with nowhere to go. The scene starts to fade around me. The lake disappears. The trees disappear. My family disappears. I'm in darkness again, but it's not scary darkness. It's peaceful, like falling asleep after a long day. Then I hear a voice, a woman's voice calling my name. Lisa, Lisa, can you hear me? I try to answer, but my throat feels dry and scratchy. She's waking up, the voice says. Get the doctor. I feel someone holding my hand. It's warm and familiar. Lisa, sweetheart, it's Mom. You're in the hospital. You're safe. I try to open my eyes, but the light is too bright. Everything is blurry and white. How long? I whisper. 20 years, Mom says, and I can hear her crying. You've been asleep for 20 years. I squeeze her hand to let her know I understand. Danny? Danny's gone, sweetheart. But you're... Here, you came back to us. I nod and close my eyes again. Not because I want to go back to sleep, but because I need a moment to feel the weight of being alive. It's heavy and light at the same time. Later, after the doctors leave and the tests are done, I ask Mom to tell me about the 20 years I missed. She shows me pictures of how the world has changed. She tells me about the people who visited me, hoping I would wake up. We never gave up, she says. We knew you'd come back when you were ready. I spent weeks learning how to walk again, how to eat solid food, how to live in the real world instead of inside my own head. It's hard, but not as hard as staying asleep. Was. Sometimes, late at night, I think I can smell wet dog in the hospital hallway, but when I look, there's nothing there. Just nurses doing their rounds and machines beeping softly. The monsters are gone. I don't need them anymore. 6 months later, I'm well enough to leave the hospital. Mom drives me past Glacier Point campground on the way home. Do you want to stop? She asks. I look at the entrance sign. There's a new ranger standing by the gate. She's young, maybe 25, with short red hair and nervous eyes. She looks like someone carrying a heavy weight, someone running from something that happened a long time ago. No, I tell Mom, but maybe we should pray for whoever's working there now. Because I know the truth now. The campground doesn't create the monsters. We bring them with us. And sometimes, if we're not careful, we feed them until there's nothing left. But sometimes, If we're very lucky, we learn to stop feeding them. We learn to forgive ourselves. We learn to wake up. My name is Carol Evans, and I need to tell you what happened at Mirror Lake. I'm 38 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I knew who my husband was. I was wrong about everything. Jim died in a car accident on a rainy Tuesday night. The funeral was small, quiet. People said nice things about him, but I could barely listen. You see, I had a secret that was eating me alive. For the past 6 months, I'd been having an affair with my co-worker, David. The guilt was like a heavy stone in my chest, getting heavier every day. 2 weeks after the funeral, Jim's lawyer called me. He said Jim had left me a cabin I'd never heard of. Mirror Lake, he called it, up in Northern California, about 3 hours from our house in Sacramento. I was confused. Jim never mentioned any cabin. We'd been married for 12 years, and I thought I knew everything about him. Are you sure? I asked the lawyer. Jim never said anything about a cabin. Oh yes, Mrs. Evans. He's owned it for 15 years, since before you were married, actually. 15 years. That meant he bought it when we were dating. How could he keep something like that from me for so long? I drove up there on a Saturday morning. The road to the cabin was narrow and bumpy, surrounded by tall pine trees that blocked out most of the sunlight. When I finally saw the lake, I had to stop the car and stare. It was perfectly round, like a giant mirror reflecting the sky. The water was so still it looked like glass. The cabin sat on a small hill overlooking the lake. It was bigger than I expected. 2 stories with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. It looked old but well kept. Jim must have been coming here regularly to maintain it. I used the key the lawyer gave me and stepped inside. The air smelled musty, like old books, and something else I couldn't identify. Something sweet and strange. The main room had a stone fireplace and comfortable furniture. Everything was clean, but there was dust on some surfaces. Jim hadn't been here in a while. I walked around slowly, touching things, trying to understand. There were photos on the mantelpiece, pictures of the lake, the surrounding forest, but none of me, none of us together. It was like this place existed in a part of Jim's life where I didn't belong. That's when I found the basement door. It was hidden behind a bookshelf in the kitchen. I might have missed it completely, but one of the books was sticking out. When I pushed it back in, the whole shelf moved, revealing a wooden door with a heavy brass handle. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Stone steps led down into darkness. I found a light switch and flicked it on. What I saw down there made my blood run cold. The basement was set up like some kind of study, but not a normal one. The walls were covered with bookshelves full of old, leather-bound books, titles I'd never heard of, written in languages I couldn't read. In the center of the room was a large wooden table covered with papers, candles, and strange objects I couldn't identify. But what scared me most was the circle drawn on the floor in what looked like black paint. It was about 6 feet across, filled with symbols and strange writing. Around the edge were more candles, some burned down to nothing, others still tall and new. I picked up one of the papers from the table. It was Jim's handwriting. I'd recognize it anywhere. At the top, he'd written, "Day 1, first contact attempt." My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. I grabbed more papers and started reading. It was like a journal, but about things that couldn't be real. Jim was writing about trying to contact the dead, about rituals and ceremonies, about someone named Sarah. "Sarah came to me again last night," one entry said. "She looked exactly like she did the day she died. Beautiful, perfect, unchanged. She wants to come back. She says the lake is the doorway." Sarah. I'd never heard Jim mention anyone named Sarah. Who was she? I kept reading, my hands shaking more with each page. The entries went back months, maybe even years. Jim had been coming to this place, doing these strange things, trying to contact this dead woman named Sarah. And he'd never told me anything about it. The last entry was dated just a week before Jim died. "I think I'm close to bringing her back. The lake is responding. The water has been moving at night, even when there's no wind. Sarah is getting stronger. Soon she'll be able to cross over. I dropped the papers and backed away from the table. This couldn't be real. Jim was an accountant. He was boring and practical and never believed in anything he couldn't see with his own eyes. This had to be some kind of joke. Or maybe he was researching something for a book he wanted to write. But deep down, I knew it wasn't a joke. The basement felt too real, too serious. And there was something else, something in the air down there, that made my skin crawl. It felt like someone was watching me, even though I was completely alone. I ran upstairs and out of the cabin. I stood on the porch, breathing hard, staring at the lake. The water was still perfectly calm, perfectly mirror-like. But now it didn't look peaceful anymore. It looked like it was waiting for something. As the sun started to set, I knew I should drive home. I should pack up Jim's things, sell this place and try to forget about it. But I couldn't leave, not yet. I needed to understand what Jim had been doing here. I needed to know who Sarah was. I decided to stay the night. That was my first mistake. I made myself dinner from the canned food I found in Jim's kitchen. My hands were still shaking from what I'd seen in the basement. I kept telling myself there had to be a normal explanation. Maybe Jim was writing a story. Maybe he was just curious about old books and weird history. But I couldn't stop thinking about that name, Sarah. As it got dark outside, I lit a fire in the fireplace. The cabin felt colder now, even with the flames dancing in front of me. I sat on Jim's couch and tried to read one of his normal books, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting to the kitchen, where I knew that hidden door was waiting. Around. 10 o'clock, I heard something outside. At first, I thought it was just the wind in the trees, but then I heard it again. A soft splash, like someone dropping a stone into the lake. I went to the window and looked out. The lake was perfectly still. No ripples, no movement at all. But there was something different about it now. The water looked darker somehow, even though the moon was bright overhead. I was about to turn away when I saw her. A woman was standing at the edge of the lake, maybe 50 feet from the cabin. She had long, dark hair and was wearing a white dress that seemed to glow in the moonlight. She was just standing there, perfectly still, looking at the water. My heart started beating fast again. Who was she? How did she get here? The road to the cabin was long and difficult. You couldn't just walk here. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. "Hello?" I called out. "Are you okay?" The woman didn't answer. She didn't even turn around. She just kept staring at the lake. I walked down the porch steps and got closer. "Excuse me," I said louder. "Do you need help?" That's when she turned to look at me. I stopped walking. I stopped breathing. I think my heart stopped too. The woman looked exactly like me. Not similar, not close, exactly like me. Same face, same hair, even the same small scar above my left eyebrow that I got when I was 7. It was like looking in a mirror, except this version of me was perfect. Her skin was smooth and glowing. Her hair was shiny and moved in the breeze, like something from a commercial. Her white dress was clean and beautiful, without a single wrinkle. "Carol," she said, and even her voice was my voice, but somehow better, warmer, kinder. "Who are you?" I whispered. She smiled, and it was the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. "I'm who you could be," she said, "if you let go of all that guilt you're carrying." My legs felt weak. This couldn't be happening. People don't just appear out of nowhere looking exactly like you. "You've been hurting so much," the perfect version of me continued. "About David, about betraying Jim. But what if I told you that? Jim was betraying you too." "What do you mean?" She pointed at the cabin. "He brought other women here, Carol, many other women. While you were at home, being faithful, he was here with them." I shook my head. "That's not true. Jim wasn't like that. Go look in his bedroom upstairs. The one you haven't found yet." Look in the closet. I turned to look at the cabin, and when I turned back, she was gone. I ran to where she'd been standing. The ground was dry, no footprints, no signs that anyone had ever been there. But I could still smell something in the air, a sweet perfume that reminded me of flowers. I stood there for a long time, staring at the lake, waiting for her to come back. But the water was empty and still. Just my own reflection looking back at me from the dark surface. Finally, I went back inside. I locked the door behind me, even though locks suddenly seemed useless. I tried to convince myself I'd been dreaming, or that the stress of losing Jim had made me see things that weren't there. But I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said, about other women, about a bedroom upstairs I hadn't found yet. Asked them, cabin only had one floor. I'd looked everywhere. There was no upstairs, except I walked to the main room and looked up at the ceiling. There, near the back wall, I saw something I'd missed before. A small rope hanging down, a rope attached to what looked like a trap door. I pulled the rope, and a set of wooden stairs unfolded from the ceiling. My mouth went dry. How had I missed this? How had I walked around this cabin for hours without noticing a whole other floor? I climbed the stairs slowly. Each step creaked under my weight. At the top, I found a small hallway with two doors. One was a bathroom, the other was a bedroom. Jim's secret bedroom. It was decorated completely different from downstairs. Red curtains, dark wood furniture, and a big bed with silk sheets. On the nightstand were photos of Jim with different women I'd never seen before. In every picture, he looked happy, happier than I'd ever seen him with me. I picked up one of the photos. Jim had his arm around a beautiful blonde woman. They were standing by the lake, both smiling. On the back, someone had written, "Jim and Sarah, forever." Sarah, the woman from his journal. I looked through more photos. Jim and Sarah by the lake. Jim and Sarah in this very bed. Jim and Sarah kissing on the porch downstairs. They looked so happy together, so in love. But who was she, and why had I never heard of her? I opened the closet like the woman outside had told me to. Inside were dresses. Beautiful, expensive dresses in different sizes, like Jim had been. Buying clothes for all these different women he brought here. At the back of the closet, I found a newspaper clipping. The headline made my blood run cold. Local woman drowns in mountain lake. Sarah Mitchell, age 32, found dead after boating. Accident. The article was 15 years old. It said Sarah had been camping at Mirror Lake with her husband when their boat overturned. Her body was found 3 days later. Her husband, James Mitchell, was devastated by the loss. James Mitchell. Jim Mitchell. Jim had been married before. Sarah was his first wife, and she died in this very lake. He'd never told me any of this. In 12 years of marriage, he'd never mentioned that he'd been married before, or that his first wife had died. I sat on the bed, holding the newspaper clipping, trying to understand. Jim had lied to me about everything. This wasn't just a cabin. It was the place where his first wife died. The place where he'd been trying to bring her back from the dead. And somehow, Sarah looked exactly like me. That's when I heard footsteps on the porch downstairs. Slow, careful footsteps, like someone was trying not to be heard. I turned off the bedroom light and crept to the window. Down below, I could see a man standing at the front door. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket. He looked exactly like Jim, but Jim was dead. I'd seen his body. I'd been to his funeral. The man knocked on the door. 3 soft knocks. "Carol," he called out. "Carol, I know you're in." "There. We need to talk." It was Jim's voice. Exactly Jim's voice. I pressed myself against the wall, trying not to breathe too loudly. This wasn't possible. Dead people don't just show up at your door. "I know you found my things," the Jim voice continued. "I know you have questions. Let me explain everything. I never meant to hurt you." Part of me wanted to run downstairs and throw open that door. Part of me had missed Jim so much that I would have given anything to see him again, to talk to him again. But I remembered the woman by the lake. How perfect she'd looked. How wrong she'd felt. I can make it all better. Carol, the voice said, I can take away all your guilt, all your pain. You just have to trust me. I stayed hidden upstairs, holding my breath, until the footsteps finally went away. When I looked out the window again, no one was there. But I could see something floating in the center of the lake, something white just below the surface. It looked like a person in a white dress. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I sat at Jim's kitchen table drinking coffee and staring at the lake. In the daylight, everything looked normal again. Just water and trees and birds singing. No mysterious women in white dresses, no dead husbands knocking on doors. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it all. Then I saw the muddy footprints on the porch. Big footprints, the size Jim used to wear. I followed them with my eyes. They came up from the lake, crossed the porch, stopped at the front door, then went back down to the water's edge. There, the footprints just stopped. Like whoever made them had walked straight into the lake and disappeared. My hands were shaking as I poured more coffee. I needed to leave this place. I needed to go home and forget about Jim's secrets. But something kept me there. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was guilt. Or maybe it was the hope that I might actually see Jim again, even if it didn't make sense. I spent the morning going through more of Jim's things. I found letters in his desk drawer, love letters to Sarah, written after she died. Pages and pages of Jim telling his dead wife how much he missed her, how sorry he was, how he was going. To find a way to bring her back. I know you're still here, one letter said. I can feel you in this place. The lake remembers you, Sarah. It holds on to you. I just need to find the right way to reach you. Another letter was different, darker. I found someone who looks like you, it said. Her name is Carol. She has your face, your smile, your voice. If I marry her, maybe you'll be jealous enough to come back to me. I dropped the letter like it was on fire. Jim had married me because I looked like his dead wife. 12 years of marriage, and I was just a replacement for someone else. A living reminder of the woman he really loved. I felt sick. All this time, I'd been carrying guilt about my affair with David, but Jim had been using me from the very beginning. That afternoon, I decided to walk down to the lake. I needed fresh air. I needed to think. The water was calm and clear, and I could see the bottom near the shore, just rocks and sand and a few old beer cans. I was walking along the edge when I saw them. Bones. White bones scattered across the lake bottom, maybe 20 feet out where the water got deeper. Not just a few bones, lots of them. Like a whole graveyard had been dumped in the lake. I stepped back from the water, my heart pounding. Those bones looked old, but some looked newer too. How many people had died in this lake? How many people had Jim brought here? Terrible, isn't it? I spun around. A man was standing behind me, tall, handsome, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked like Jim, but better, younger, more caring. You're not real, I said. He laughed, and it was the warmest sound I'd ever heard. I'm more real than I ever was when I was alive, Carol. Death has a way of showing you what really matters. You're not Jim. I'm the Jim you deserved, he said. The Jim who would have loved you for yourself, not because you looked like someone else. The Jim who would never have cheated, never have lied, never have used you. He stepped closer, and I could smell his aftershave, the same brand Jim always wore. I know about David, he said softly. I know about your affair, and I forgive you. Carol, you were lonely, you were hurt, you needed someone to care about you the way I should have. Tears started running down my face. I'd been carrying so much guilt for so long, and here was Jim, or whatever this was, telling me it was. Okay, I don't understand what's happening, I whispered. The lake is special, he said. It holds on to love, it holds on to regret. All the strong emotions that people bring here, they sink down into the water and stay there, growing stronger. He reached out and touched my face, wiping away my tears. His hand felt warm and real. Sarah is down there, he said, pointing at the water, and all the others, everyone who ever loved someone so much they couldn't let go. The lake gives us a second chance, Carol, a chance to be perfect for each other. The others? People who came here looking for their lost loves. People who were willing to do anything to be with them again. The lake gave them what they wanted. I looked at the bones scattered across the bottom. They're all dead. No, he said. They're perfect. Death is just the beginning here. It's where love gets pure. He took my hand and started walking toward the water. Come with me, Carol. Let me show you how beautiful it can be. I pulled away. No, this is crazy. You're not real, and I'm not going in that water. His perfect face looked sad. You're afraid because you don't understand yet. But you will. The lake is patient, it can wait. He started to fade away like smoke in the wind. I'll be here when you're ready, Carol. I'll always be here. I ran back to the cabin and locked the door behind me. I was breathing hard, like I'd just run a marathon. None of this made sense. Dead people don't come back. Lakes don't hold on to emotions. I was probably having some kind of breakdown from grief and stress. But that night, I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said, about forgiveness, about being perfect for each other. I stood at the window, looking out at the lake. The water was dark and still, but I could see lights moving under the surface, soft, golden lights that pulsed like heartbeats. And I could hear music, faint and far away, but definitely music, like a wedding song. Part of me wanted to go down there. Part of me wanted to walk into that water and find out what was really waiting for me. The perfect Jim had been so kind, so loving, so different from the real Jim who had lied to me for 12 years. I pressed my hand against the glass window. It felt cold. That's when I saw her again, the perfect version of myself, standing by the water's edge. She was wearing a different dress tonight, a beautiful blue one that I'd always wanted but could never afford. She looked up at me and smiled. Then she pointed to something floating in the water near her feet. It was a car key, my car key. I ran outside and down to the shore. How did you get that? I shouted. You dropped it yesterday, she said, when you were walking by the lake. But I hadn't been walking by the lake yesterday. I'd stayed on the porch the whole time. You're lying, I said. She picked up the key and held it out to me. Come and get it. I looked at the water between us. It was only a few feet deep where she was standing. I could easily wade out and get my key. But something felt wrong about it. Why can't you bring it to me? I asked. I can't leave the water, she said. None of us can, not until you join us. Us? She pointed to the deeper part of the lake. More lights were rising from the bottom now, dozens of them. And I could see shapes moving in the glow, people all walking slowly toward the shore. They all looked perfect, beautiful, happy, and they all looked like they were waiting for me. I backed away from the water. I'm leaving tomorrow, I said. I'm going home. Perfect, Carol smiled sadly. You can't leave without your key, and winter is coming. The roads get snowed in for months up here. You'll be trapped. I looked around. The trees did look different than they had this morning. More golden, more like fall. How long have I been here, I asked. But when I looked back at the water, she was gone. They were all gone. Just my car key, floating on the surface, too far out to reach. I woke up the next morning on the couch. I didn't remember falling asleep there. The last thing I remembered was standing by the lake, watching my car key float in the water. Sunlight was streaming through the windows, but something felt different. Wrong. I looked at my watch. It said 2 p.m., but it felt like early morning. I went to the kitchen and looked at the calendar on Jim's wall. According to the dates I'd been marking, I'd been at the cabin for 3 days, but the calendar showed I'd been there for over a week. That was impossible. I would remember a whole week. I ran outside to check my car. It was still there, but when I tried the doors, they were locked. I patted my pockets, hoping I'd find my spare key. Nothing. The key was still floating in the lake, but now it was even further from shore, like it was slowly drifting toward the center. I stood there staring at it, trying to figure out how to get it back. The water was clear enough that I could see the bottom, more bones than before, and something else. A skull, human skull, sitting upright in the sand like it was looking back at me. You're starting to see the truth. I turned around. Perfect Jim was sitting on the porch steps, looking sad and tired. What truth? I asked. About what really happened. Here, about what I really was. He stood up and walked toward me. In the daylight, I could see that he wasn't quite as perfect as I'd thought. There were dark circles under his eyes. His smile looked forced. The Jim you married was broken, Carol. He was obsessed with bringing Sarah back. He tried everything. Books, rituals, deals with things that should have been left alone. What kind of deals? The lake isn't just water. It's old, older than the mountains around it. And it's hungry. It feeds on love and grief and regret. All those strong feelings that people bring here. He pointed to the bones in the water. Jim brought people here. People who looked like Sarah. People who sounded like her. He told them he could help them find their lost loves. But really, he was feeding them to the lake. My stomach felt sick. How many people? Dozens. Over the years. The lake would take them, and in return, it would give Jim glimpses of Sarah, just enough to keep him hoping, keep him bringing more. I backed away from the water. You're lying. Jim wasn't a killer. Wasn't he? Perfect Jim's face changed, got harder, more like the real Jim I remembered. What do you think happened to all those women in the photographs upstairs? Where did they go after their visits to the cabin? I thought about the dresses in the closet, all different sizes, like they'd belonged to different women. The last one was named Jennifer, he continued. She looked so much like Sarah that Jim thought she might actually be her, somehow reborn. He brought her here 2 months before he met you. What happened to Jennifer? The same thing that happened to all of them. The lake took her, but it wasn't enough anymore. Jim was getting desperate. That's when he found you. I remembered our first meeting. Jim had been so charming, so interested in me. I'd thought it was love at first sight. He saw you at a coffee shop and couldn't believe it, Perfect Jim said. You looked exactly like Sarah, not just similar, exactly. Same face, same voice, same everything. Like Sarah had come back to life. So he married me. He married you, but he never stopped trying to bring Sarah back. Every weekend he told you he was working, he was really here, performing rituals, reading from those books downstairs, getting more and more obsessed. I felt dizzy. 12 years of marriage, and it had all been a lie. Then something changed, Perfect Jim continued. 3 months ago, the lake started responding differently. The water would move at night. Things would appear and disappear. Jim thought it meant Sarah was finally ready to come back. But it wasn't Sarah, was it? He shook his head. It was something else. Something that had been sleeping in the deep. Water, fed by all those people Jim had sacrificed over the years. Something that learned about love and loss by eating the emotions of the dead. What is it? It doesn't have a name, it's just hunger. It takes the shape of what people want most, becomes the perfect version of their deepest desires. For Jim, it became Sarah. For you, it becomes me. I looked at him more carefully. He was starting to look less perfect now. His skin was too pale. His eyes were too bright, and when he smiled, I could see that his teeth were too sharp. You're not Jim at all, I whispered. No, he said. I'm what ate Jim. The world seemed to tilt sideways. He's dead? He came here one last time 3 weeks ago, the night before his car accident. He thought he'd finally found the right ritual to bring Sarah back, but when he performed it, I came up from the lake instead. Perfect Jim's face was changing now, getting longer, the features shifting like clay. I was hungry after sleeping for so long. Jim was so full of guilt and love and desperate need. He tasted wonderful. The car accident, there was no accident. I followed Jim home, wearing his face, learning to be him. But I wasn't very good at it yet. I made mistakes, forgot things a husband should remember, said things Jim would never say. I remembered that last week before Jim died. How strange he'd been acting. How different. You killed him and took his place. I became him, that's different. And I would have stayed him forever, but then you started having that affair with David. My blood went cold. How do you know about David? I know everything Jim knew, including how much your betrayal hurt him, how guilty it made you. Guilt is delicious, Carol. It's like candy to something like me. The thing that looked like Jim stepped closer. So I arranged for Jim's body to have an accident. Made sure you'd inherit this place. Made sure you'd come here, full of guilt and sadness and regret. You brought me here on purpose. I brought you here to feed. You see, I can only eat strong emotions. And the strongest emotions come from people who are broken inside, people who hate themselves, people who think they deserve to be punished. I started backing toward the cabin. I'm leaving right now. With what car keys? It laughed. Besides, you can't leave. Look around, Carol. Really look. I looked at the trees surrounding the lake. They were closer than they'd been yesterday. Much closer. Like the forest was slowly closing in on the cabin. How long have I really been here? I asked. Does it matter? Time works differently here. The lake stretches moments into hours, hours into days. You've been feeding me for weeks now, even, though it feels like days to you. I ran toward my car, hoping maybe I'd missed a spare key somewhere. But when I got there, I stopped cold. The car was different. Older, rustier, like it had been sitting there for months instead of days. The guilt is making you weak, the thing said from behind me. Soon you won't be able to tell what's real and what isn't. Soon you'll be ready to join the others in the lake. I spun around to face it. What others? It smiled with Jim's face, but the expression was all wrong. All the people who came here looking for their lost loves. All the people I convinced to walk into the water. They're all still down there, Carol. Still conscious, still aware, still feeling guilty about whatever brought them here. That's impossible. People can't live underwater. They're not living, but they're not dead either. There's something in between, something that can feel everything but can't do anything about it. It's wonderful. I looked at the lake. Those golden lights were moving under the surface again, but now I could see them more clearly. They weren't just lights. They were people, dozens of people, walking slowly along the bottom of the lake. All of them looking up at me with empty, desperate eyes. All of them trying to scream, but no sound coming out. Soon you'll join them, the thing said. Soon you'll walk into the water on your own, because the guilt will be too much to bear. And then you'll spend forever down there, thinking about David, thinking about your affair, thinking about how you betrayed poor Jim. But Jim betrayed me first, I said. He was a murderer. Does that make your guilt any less real? Does that make your affair any less wrong? I didn't have an answer for that. The thing smiled wider. I didn't think so. See you tonight, Carol. When the moon comes up, you'll be ready. It walked toward the lake and didn't stop when it reached the water. It just kept walking until the lake closed over its head. I was alone again, but I could still hear it laughing from somewhere deep below the surface. I ran back to the cabin and slammed the door behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the lock. Not that locks would help against something that could walk through water like air. I had to get out of here. I had to find another way. I searched through all of Jim's things, looking for spare car keys, a phone, anything that could help me escape. But the more I looked, the more wrong everything seemed. The photos on the walls showed people I didn't recognize. The books on the shelves had titles that hurt my eyes to read. Even the mirrors looked strange, like they were showing me things that weren't quite right. In one mirror, my reflection looked tired and thin. In another, I looked pale and sick. In the bathroom mirror, I looked like I was drowning. I tried not to look at the mirrors after that. As the sun went down, I heard splashing outside. Not the gentle sound of small waves, big splashes, like people walking out of the water. I peeked through the curtains. They were coming up from the lake. Dozens of them. All the people who had died here over the years. They moved slowly, like sleepwalkers, water dripping from their clothes and hair. But they looked perfect, beautiful, happy. They stood in a circle around the cabin just watching, waiting. In the center of the group was Perfect Jim. He looked more real than ever, more like the Jim I had married and loved. "Carol," he called, "out. It's time. Come outside. Come join us." I pressed myself against the wall, trying not to breathe too loudly. "I know you can hear me," he continued. "I know you're scared, but there's nothing to be afraid of. Look how peaceful we all are. Look how happy." I looked again. They did look happy, calm, like all their worries had been washed away. "The guilt is eating you alive in there," Perfect Jim said. "You're thinking about David, about how you betrayed me, about how you're a terrible person who doesn't deserve forgiveness." He was right. I was thinking about all of those things. But out here, none of that matters. Out here you can be perfect, clean, pure. You can be the wife you always wanted to be. One of the women in the circle stepped forward. She looked like me, but better. This version of me was wearing a white wedding dress and smiling like she had never done anything wrong in her life. "This is who you really are, Carol," Perfect Jim said. "This is who you were meant to be. Not the woman who cheated on her husband. Not the woman who carries guilt like a disease. This woman is faithful. This woman is pure. This woman deserves love." I wanted to be that woman. I wanted to be clean and perfect and free from all the terrible things I'd done. "Just walk outside," Perfect Jim said gently. "Just take my hand. One step, and all your pain goes away forever." I found myself walking toward the door. My hand was reaching for the handle. Then I stopped. Something was wrong with the perfect me in the white dress. Her smile was too wide. Her eyes were too bright. And she wasn't breathing. None of them were breathing. "You're all dead," I whispered. "We're better than alive," Perfect Jim said. "We're perfect." I stepped back from the door. "No, I'm not going out there." "You have to, Carol. You can't stay in there forever. And the guilt will only get worse. Soon you won't be able to stand it anymore." He was right about that too. The guilt was getting worse. Every minute that passed, I thought more about David, about the lies I'd told Jim, about how I'd betrayed the man I'd promised to love forever. But then I remembered something else. Jim had betrayed me first. Jim had married me because I looked like his dead wife. Jim had been a killer. Jim was worse than me, I said out loud. The perfect people around the cabin started looking angry. Their beautiful faces twisted into ugly expressions. "That doesn't matter," Perfect Jim snarled. "Your guilt is still real. Your betrayal is still real." "So is his," I shot back. "Jim is dead. His guilt died with him. But you're alive, and your guilt is alive too. It's growing stronger every second." I could feel it. The guilt was like a living thing inside me, getting bigger and heavier. Soon it would be too much to carry. I needed to think of something else. Something that wasn't about guilt or betrayal or what a terrible person I was. I thought about my sister Lisa, how she always made me laugh, how she never judged me for anything, how she would be worried sick if I didn't come home. For just a moment, the guilt got smaller. "That's not going to work," Perfect Jim said. He sounded less perfect now, more angry. You can't think your way out of what you did. But I kept thinking about Lisa, about my job, where people counted on me, about my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who I helped with her groceries every week, about all the small, good things I'd done in my life. The guilt was still there, but it wasn't the only thing anymore. "Stop it," Perfect Jim demanded. The other Perfect. People were starting to look less perfect too. Their skin was getting grey. Their beautiful clothes were turning into wet, rotting rags. I thought about David, not about the affair, but about why it had happened. I'd been lonely. Jim had been distant and cold for months before he died. I'd needed someone to care about, me to make me feel like I mattered. The affair was wrong, but it was also human. "Humans make mistakes," I said. "That's what makes us human." "Shut up," Perfect Jim screamed. He didn't look like Jim anymore. His face was stretching, getting longer. His perfect teeth were growing into fangs. All the perfect people were changing. Now, becoming the monsters they really were. Grey skin, empty eye sockets, mouths full of broken glass instead of teeth. "You will come out here," the thing that had pretended to be Jim hissed. "You will join us. You belong with us." "No," I said. "I belong with the living, with people who make mistakes and feel guilty and try to do better." I was still afraid. I was still guilty about David. But I was also more than just my mistakes. The monsters around the cabin started screaming, not words, just horrible sounds, like metal being torn apart. They began walking toward the cabin, but with each step they got a little less solid, a little more like smoke. "You can't escape your guilt," the thing shrieked. "It will follow you forever." "Maybe," I said, "but it won't control me forever." The monsters reached the cabin walls and started dissolving like mist. Their screams got quieter and quieter until they faded away completely. I was alone again, but this time I felt different, stronger. The guilt was still there, but it felt smaller now. More like something I could carry instead of something that was carrying me. I looked out the window. The lake was calm and empty, just water reflecting the moonlight. My car keys were floating near the shore. I walked outside, waded into the shallow water and picked them up. The water was cold but normal, just water. I got in my car and started the engine. It turned over on the first try. As I drove away from Mirror Lake, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. The cabin was dark and empty. The lake was still, but I thought I saw something white floating just below the surface. Something that might have been a woman in a wedding dress. I didn't stop driving until I reached the main highway. I never went back to Mirror Lake, but sometimes late at night I dream about perfect people standing in still water, waiting for someone new to feel guilty enough to join them. And sometimes I wonder if I really escaped at all, or if I'm still down there, walking along the bottom of the lake, dreaming that I got away. 3 months later, I was back home in Sacramento. I'd returned to work, started seeing a counselor about the guilt I still carried, and tried to put Mirror Lake behind me. People said I looked better, healthier, more at peace with myself. My sister Lisa visited often. "You're different," she told me one evening as we sat in my kitchen drinking tea. "In a good way, like you've finally forgiven yourself." I smiled at her. It was true. The awful weight I'd carried for so long was mostly gone. I still felt bad about the affair with David, but it didn't control my life anymore. I was learning to live with my mistakes instead of drowning in them. "I've been thinking about dating again," I told Lisa. "Maybe it's time to move forward." She looked surprised but happy. "That's wonderful, Carol. Jim's been gone for months. Now, you deserve to be happy." That night after Lisa left, I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I did look better. My skin was clearer, my eyes brighter. I looked like the best version of myself. I looked perfect. The thought came from nowhere and made me feel cold inside. I stared at my reflection more carefully. When had my skin gotten so smooth? When had my hair become so shiny? When had I started looking like something from a magazine instead of a real person? I touched my face. It felt real enough, warm. But there was something wrong about it, something too perfect. I went to my bedroom and opened the drawer where I kept Jim's things. The few items I'd brought back from the cabin. His journal was there, along with some of the photos I'd found. I opened the journal to a page I'd read many times before, Jim's handwriting, describing his experiments with the lake. But now, there was something new written at the bottom of the page, in my handwriting. Day 1, the replacement is working perfectly. No one suspects anything. My hands started shaking. I didn't remember writing that. I would never write something like that. I flipped through more pages, more entries in my handwriting, scattered throughout Jim's journal. Day 15. Carol's sister trusts me completely. I'm becoming more like Carol every day. Day 32. Started going to a counselor. Even she thinks I'm the real Carol, just healing from my trauma. Day 45. The guilt is almost gone now. I'm learning to be the Carol everyone wants her to be. I dropped the journal and ran to the mirror again. My reflection looked back at me, smiling a perfect smile. Hello, Carol, my reflection said, but I hadn't opened my mouth. You're not real, I whispered. I'm more real than you ever were, my reflection replied. I'm the Carol people love. The Carol who doesn't cheat on her husband. The Carol who doesn't carry guilt like a disease. I pressed my hands against the mirror. The glass felt cold. What happened to the real me? She's still at the lake. She never left. She walked into the water that last night just like I knew she would. The guilt finally became too much for her to bear. I remembered driving away from the lake. I remembered the relief I felt. But now those memories felt thin, like dreams. I drove home, I said. I escaped. You dreamed you escaped. While you were walking along the bottom of the lake, I was here, learning to be you, learning to be perfect. My reflection's smile got wider. Everyone loves the new Carol. Your sister, your co-workers, even your counselor. They all say how much better you are now, how much happier, how much more at peace. I thought about the past 3 months, how easy everything had been, how quickly I'd gotten over Jim's death, how the guilt had just melted away like it was never real. People don't heal that fast, I whispered. Real people don't, but perfect people do. I looked around my bedroom. Everything was exactly as I'd left it 3 months ago, but it all felt like a stage set, like props in a play about Carol's life. The others at the lake, I said, are they still there? Oh yes, all of them. Jim, Sarah, Jennifer, all the people. He fed to the lake over the years. And now you too. You're all down there together, sharing your guilt and regret forever. I could almost feel it. Cold water pressing down on me, the weight of the guilt crushing my chest. Other people walking beside me in the darkness, all of us trapped by the things we'd done wrong. But don't worry, my reflection continued. I'm taking good care of your life up here. I'm making you into everything you always wanted to be. Beautiful, kind, perfect. No one will ever suspect that the real Carol is gone. I started backing away from the mirror. I have to tell someone. I have to warn them. Who would believe you? And besides, look around, Carol. Look at how much better your life is now. Your sister is happy. Your friends think you finally found peace. Even you would have to admit, I'm doing a better job of being you than you ever did. She was right. Everyone in my life was happier with this perfect version of me. The version that didn't make mistakes or carry heavy guilt or hurt the people she loved. Soon, I'll find someone to love, my reflection said. Someone good and kind who deserves a perfect wife. And I'll make him so happy. I'll never cheat on him. I'll never lie to him. I'll be everything a woman should be. But you're not real, I said. I'm real enough, and when I find the right man, I'll bring him to the lake. I'll show him how perfect love can be, how clean and pure and beautiful it is when all the human messiness is washed away. I realized what she meant. The entity wasn't done. It was going to keep spreading, keep making more perfect people to replace the flawed, guilty human ones. I have to stop you, I said. My reflection laughed. How? You're not even here, Carol. You're at the bottom of a lake, dreaming that you escaped. This conversation isn't real. I'm not real. Nothing is real except the cold water and the guilt and the endless walking in the dark. The room started to feel less solid. The walls looked like they were made of water. My bed, my dresser, everything was wavering like it was underwater. Soon you'll stop dreaming about escaping, my reflection said. Soon you'll accept where you really are. And then you'll just walk forever, thinking about David, thinking about your affair, thinking about what a terrible person you were. The water was rising now. I could feel it around my ankles, cold and dark. Goodbye, Carol, my reflection said. Thank you for letting me be everything you never could. The water reached my chest, my neck, my mouth. I tried to scream, but only bubbles came out. The last thing I saw was my perfect reflection, waving goodbye from the surface far above me. Then everything was dark and cold and quiet, and I started walking. Just like Jim had walked, just like Sarah had walked, just like all the others who came to Mirror Lake carrying guilt too heavy to bear. Walking forever at the bottom of the lake, while somewhere far above, our perfect replacements lived the lives we never deserved to have. The lives we dreamed of having. The lives we would dream of having forever. In the cold, dark water, with our guilt as our only companion, we walk and dream and remember what it felt like to be imperfect, what it felt like to be human, what it felt like to be real. My name is Bob Turner, and I need to tell you what happened to me on Mount Sorrow. I know you probably won't believe me, but I have to try. Someone needs to know the truth before it's too late. I was 45 years old when I took the job as a fire lookout. Most people thought I was crazy for wanting to spend a whole year alone on a mountain, but they didn't understand. I needed to get away from everything, from everyone, from the memories that wouldn't leave me alone. You see, I was in Korea back in the 50s. I was a soldier, and I did something terrible, something that still wakes me up screaming in the middle of the night. It was supposed to be a simple mission, but I made a mistake. A big mistake. I called in the wrong coordinates for an airstrike, and 6 of my own men died because of it. 6 good men who trusted me. My best friend Jimmy was one of them. I can still see his face sometimes, the way he looked at me right before the bombs fell. He knew it was my fault, and he forgave me anyway. That's what made it worse. If he had been angry, maybe I could have lived with it. But that look of forgiveness in his eyes, it haunts me every single day. After Korea, I tried to live a normal life. I got married, had a job, went to church on Sundays, but nothing worked. The nightmares kept coming. My wife left me after. I woke up one night trying to strangle her, thinking she was the enemy. I lost job after job because I couldn't focus. All I could think about were those 6 faces, especially Jimmy's. That's when I saw the ad in the newspaper. Fire lookout wanted, Mount Sorrow, Colorado. 1-year position, must be comfortable with isolation. It was perfect. No people to hurt, no one to let down. Just me and the mountains, and maybe some peace. The helicopter dropped me off on a cold morning in March. The pilot, a young guy with kind eyes, helped me carry my supplies to the tower. "You sure about this, mister?" he asked, looking around at the empty wilderness. "It gets pretty lonely up here. Last guy only lasted 3 months." "What happened to him?" I asked. The pilot shrugged. "Just left one day. Didn't even take his stuff. Rangers found the tower empty and all his belongings still there. Radio was still on, but nobody answered when they called." I didn't care. I wanted to be alone. I needed to be alone. The fire tower was tall and skinny, made of metal that creaked in the wind. It stood about 60 feet high, with a small cabin at the top where I would live. Inside, there was a bed, a table, some shelves, and the radio equipment I'd used to report any fires I spotted. The view was incredible. I could see for miles in every direction. Mountains covered in thick green trees, valleys with little streams running through them, and sky that seemed to go on forever. It was beautiful, but there was something else too. Something that made the hair on my arms stand up. The place felt old, really old, like it had been watching and waiting for a very long time. That first night I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes I heard sounds outside, not animal sounds. I knew those. These were different, like footsteps walking around. The base of the tower, heavy footsteps, but when I looked out the windows with my flashlight, I couldn't see anything. The wind kept making the tower sway back and forth, and the metal groaned like it was in pain. I told myself it was just the mountain settling, just normal sounds. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Something was watching me. I should have left that first night. I should have called for the helicopter to come back and get me, but I was tired of running. Tired of being afraid. I thought the worst thing that could happen was that I'd go crazy from being alone. I was wrong. What happened to me was so much worse than going crazy, and it started the very next day. The dream started on my third night. I was walking through deep snow, even though it was March and most of the snow had melted. In the dream, I could feel the cold biting my face and hear my boots crunching with each step. But I wasn't alone. Right next to my footprints were other tracks, much bigger tracks. They looked like human footprints, but they were huge, maybe twice the size of mine. And whoever made them was walking right beside me, matching my pace step for step. I could even hear their breathing, slow and deep, like a sleeping bear. The weird thing was, I wasn't scared in the dream. I felt safe. Like this invisible giant was protecting me somehow. We walked together through the snow for what felt like hours, not saying anything, just walking. When I woke up, my feet were cold and wet, even though I was warm and dry, and my bed, I checked my boots. They were covered in snow. That should have been my first real warning, but I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Maybe I'd sleepwalked outside. Maybe I'd stuck my feet out the window. There had to be a normal reason. But the dreams kept coming, night after night. Always the same thing, walking through snow with those giant footprints beside mine. And every morning my boots were wet and cold. By the end of the first week, something else started happening. I'd be doing normal things during the day, checking the radio, scanning the horizon for smoke, writing in my logbook. And suddenly, I'd hear myself speaking, but not in English. The words sounded old and deep, like rocks grinding against each other. I had no idea what I was saying, but somehow, deep in my chest, the words felt important. They felt true, like I was saying something that needed to be said. The first time it happened, I was making coffee. I reached for the pot and heard my own voice say something that sounded like "Kamotak Nessen." I stopped and looked around, thinking maybe the radio was picking up some foreign station, but the radio was off. It happened more and more. While I was eating breakfast, I'd mutter strange words under my breath. While I was scanning the forest with my binoculars, I'd find myself whispering in that deep, rocky language. And always, it felt right. Like those words belonged in my mouth. The radio started acting strange too. Every morning at 8 o'clock, I was supposed to check in with headquarters, but when I tried to talk, other voices would come out of the speaker. Not my voice, deeper voices, older voices. They spoke the same rocky language I'd been muttering. "Turner, this is Base. Please repeat your last transmission," the operator would say. "Sorry, Base, just some static. All clear up here." But I knew what I'd heard. And I was starting to think the voices weren't coming from the radio at all. They were coming from me. At night, Lying in my narrow bed, I could feel the tower swaying in the wind, but sometimes it felt like the swaying had a rhythm to it, like breathing. Like the whole tower was the chest of some giant creature, rising and falling as it slept. I'd put my hand flat against the metal wall and feel a pulse, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. When I pressed my ear to the wall, I could hear something that sounded like whispering. Lots of voices, all talking at once, too quiet to understand but loud enough to know they were there. During my second week, I started finding things that shouldn't have been there. Scratches on the walls that looked like letters or symbols, but not in any alphabet I knew. They appeared overnight, carved deep into the metal like someone had used their fingernails. But the metal was thick and hard. No human fingernails could have done that. The scratches hurt to look at. Not because they were scary, but because they made my head ache. Like trying to remember something important that was just out of reach. Sometimes I'd trace them with my finger, and for a second I'd almost understand what they meant. Almost. But understanding felt dangerous. Like opening a door I might not be able to close again. I should have called for help then, should have radioed base and asked them to send the helicopter. But every time I reached for the radio, I'd hear those deep voices whispering, and I'd stop. They weren't telling me not to call. They were just there, waiting, like old friends who had been patient for a very long time. And the strangest part, for the first time since Korea, I wasn't having nightmares about Jimmy and those 6 dead soldiers. Instead, I was having dreams about walking in the snow with my invisible giant friend. I was sleeping better than I had in 20 years. Maybe that should have scared me more than anything else. 3 weeks in, I started drawing. I'd never been much of an artist. In school, I could barely draw a decent stick figure. But one morning I woke up and found a pencil in my hand and papers scattered all around my bed. They were covered with symbols, the same ones that had been appearing on the tower walls. My hand was cramped and sore, like I'd been drawing for hours, but I didn't remember doing it. The last thing I remembered was going to sleep around 10 o'clock. Now it was morning, and I had drawn dozens of pages filled with these strange marks. The symbols looked almost like letters, but twisted and wrong. Some were curved like snake bodies, others had sharp angles that seemed to point in directions that didn't exist. When I looked at them, my eyes wanted to slide away, like they were too bright or too dark to focus on properly. I tried to throw the papers away, but I couldn't. Every time I reached for them, my hand would stop, like something inside me was saying, "No, these are important." So I kept them, stacking them neatly on my small table. That night, it happened again. I went to sleep normal, but woke up with more drawings. And this time, something was different. This time, the symbols weren't just on paper, they were on my skin. I found them when I was getting dressed. 3 symbols carved into my left arm, just above my wrist. They looked like someone had taken a hot knife and carefully cut them into my flesh. But there was no blood, no pain, just these perfect, clean marks that seemed to glow slightly in the morning light. I touched them with my other hand and they felt warm. Not hot, just warm, like they had their own tiny fire burning inside them. And when I touched them, I heard that rocky language again. But this time I knew what the words meant. We remember. The voice said inside my head, we remember everything. That's when I realized the voice wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside me. Like there was someone else living in my brain. Someone who had been there for a while, just waiting for the right moment to speak up. "Who are you?" I whispered to my empty tower. The answer came not in words, but in pictures. Suddenly my mind was filled with images that weren't mine. I saw the mountain covered in thick forests, but different forests than what was there now. Older trees, bigger trees, and moving between them were shapes that looked almost human, but much taller and covered in dark fur. They lived in families. These creatures, I could see them gathering food, caring for their young, making simple tools from stones and branches. They were peaceful, gentle. They hurt no one. And then came the hunters, men with guns and dogs and hate in their hearts. They wanted to kill something big, something that would make them famous. The creatures tried to hide, tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The hunters surrounded them near a small lake at the base of the mountain. I watched through eyes that weren't mine as the shooting started, felt the terror and confusion of creatures who had never known violence, heard their cries as they fell one by one. A mother trying to protect her baby, an old grandfather standing between the guns and his family. All of them dying while the hunters laughed and took pictures. But the worst part wasn't the dying. The worst part was that they remembered everything. As each creature fell, their memories didn't die with them. Instead, they soaked into the mountain itself. All their love, all their pain, all their knowledge, it became part of the rocks and trees and earth. The mountain remembered. And now it was sharing those memories with me. When the vision ended, I was on my knees in the middle of my tower, crying, not just for the dead creatures, but for something deeper. The same feeling I'd had in Korea when I watched my friends die. The same helpless anger at waste and cruelty and loss. I looked down at my arm. There were more symbols now, a whole line of them going from my wrist to my elbow. They were warm and glowing, and I knew without being told that each one was a name, the name of one of the creatures who had died by that lake. I was becoming their memory book, their way of making sure they would never be forgotten. That night, I didn't even try to fight the dreams. I let myself walk through the snow with my invisible companion, and now I knew who it was. One of them, one of the creatures the hunters had killed. He was walking with me, showing me the mountain through his eyes, teaching me his language, sharing his memories. And slowly, carefully, he was making me into something like him. The strangest part was how right it felt. For the first time since Korea, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, like everything that had happened, the war, the mistakes, the guilt, the loneliness, had all been leading me here, to this tower, to these creatures who understood loss better than anyone. They knew what it was like to carry the memories of the dead. They knew what it was like to live with unbearable sadness, and they knew how to make that sadness into something else, something powerful. I just didn't understand yet what that something was. On my 4th week, I lived through the massacre. Not in a dream this time, not in a vision. I was there in 1892, watching it happen through the eyes of a creature named Kamorthak. The same name I'd been saying without knowing what it meant. It started while I was eating lunch. One moment I was chewing a ham sandwich, and the next moment I was standing by a small lake, looking down at my reflection in the water. But it wasn't my face looking back. It was a face covered in dark brown fur, with deep, intelligent eyes and a wide, gentle mouth. I was Kamorthak, and I was afraid. The hunters had been tracking us for 3 days. We could smell their strange scent, metal and gunpowder and something else, something angry and hungry that we didn't understand. Our elders told us to keep moving, to go deeper into the mountains where the humans couldn't follow. But we were tired, and the little ones needed water, so we stopped at the lake to rest. Just for a few minutes, that's when they found us. I heard the dogs first, barking and howling as they caught our scent. Then came the men, crashing through the trees, with their loud voices and their terrible weapons. There were 8 of them, dressed in thick coats and heavy boots. Their faces were red from the cold, and their eyes were bright with excitement. "There!" one of them shouted, pointing right at me. "I told you they were real!" The shooting started. Before we could run, I watched my cousin fall first, a young female who had just had her first baby. The bullet hit her in the chest, and she looked surprised more than hurt, like she couldn't believe something so small could cause so much pain. She reached out toward her baby, trying to protect it, but another shot knocked her backwards into the lake. The water turned red around her. My grandfather tried to stand between the hunters and the rest of us. He was old and his back was bent, but he was still bigger than any of the humans. He held up his hands to show he meant no harm, and he spoke to them in their language, words he had learned from listening to trappers over the years. "Please," he said, we go. No hurt you. We go." They laughed and shot him 6 times. I felt every bullet like it was hitting me too. Not just the pain, though there was plenty of that, but the sadness. The deep, crushing sadness of watching someone you love die for no reason at all. It was exactly the same feeling I'd had in Korea when I watched Jimmy and the others disappear in the explosion I had caused. The same helpless anger, the same terrible knowledge that this was my fault, that I should have been able to prevent it somehow. But this time I wasn't the one who caused the death. I was the one being killed. The hunters moved through our family like they were shooting targets at a fair. My nephew, who loved to collect pretty stones. My sister, who sang lullabies to help the little ones sleep. My brother, who had never hurt anything in his long life. One by one they fell, and with each death I felt their memories pouring into me. Not just their own memories, but the memories of everyone they had ever loved. Generations of my people, all their knowledge and stories and songs, flowing through me like water through a broken dam. That's when I understood what was happening. We weren't disappearing when we died. We were joining something bigger. All of us together, becoming part of the mountain itself. Our bodies would rot away, but our minds, our memories, our love for each other, that would last forever. The hunters thought they were ending us, but they were really just changing us into something else, something they couldn't see or touch or kill. I was the last one alive by the lake. The hunters had saved me for the end because I was the biggest. They wanted to take their time to make sure they got good pictures of their prize. But as I lay there bleeding, I wasn't thinking about dying. I was thinking about remembering. All the memories of my family, all the love and pain and joy we had shared was flowing out of me and into the rocks and trees and water. And I knew that someday, when the right person came along, we would share those memories again. We would find someone who understood loss the way we did, someone who carried their own dead friends in their heart. Someone like me, someone like Bob Turner. The vision ended with the sound of the final gunshot. But I didn't feel the bullet. Instead, I felt something else, a deep, warm connection to dozens of other minds. All the creatures who had died that day, now living together in a place beyond death. They had been waiting for me, waiting for someone who could understand their pain because I carried the same kind of pain inside me. Jimmy and the other soldiers from Korea. They were part of me the same way Kamorthak's family was part of him. We were all carrying our dead. We all knew what it felt like to survive when others didn't. And now, somehow, we were going to help each other. When I came back to myself, I was lying on the floor of my tower. The symbols on my arm had spread to cover my whole left side, from my wrist to my shoulder. Each one was warm and glowing, and I knew them all now. Not just names, but entire lives, entire families, generations of memories preserved in the mountain, waiting for someone to help them remember. Outside my window, the sun was setting behind the peaks. The forest looked exactly the same as always, but now I could see deeper. I could see the shapes moving between the trees, the shadows that weren't quite shadows. My new family watching over me, teaching me, getting me ready for whatever came next. I wasn't alone anymore. I would never be alone again. But I was starting to realize that might not be a good thing. By my 6th week, my body wasn't my own anymore. It started small, hair growing in places where I'd never had hair before. Not just on my face, that was normal, but thick, dark hair sprouting on my arms and chest and back. When I tried to shave it off, it grew back overnight, longer and thicker than before. My hands were changing too. The fingers were getting longer, and my nails were growing into thick, curved claws that I couldn't cut no matter how hard I tried. When I touched things, I could feel more than I used to. The texture of wood, the temperature of metal, even the tiny vibrations in the air when birds flew by outside. But the strangest part was that none of it felt wrong. It felt like I was finally becoming who I was supposed to be. The memories kept coming every night, not just from Kamorthak's family now, but from everyone who had ever died on this mountain. Hikers who got lost in blizzards, hunters who fell off cliffs, even some of the old Native Americans who used to live here before the white settlers came. Each death was different, but they all had one thing in common. In their final moments, they all felt the same thing I had felt in Korea, the same thing Kamorthak felt by the lake. That deep sadness mixed with love, that terrible knowledge that everything ends but somehow continues. And all those final thoughts, all that pain and love and fear, had soaked into the mountain like rain into soil. I started to understand that Mount Sorrow wasn't just a mountain. It was alive. Every rock and tree and stream was part of one giant creature that had been sleeping for thousands of years, dreaming the dreams of everyone who died on its slopes. My fire tower wasn't just built on the mountain. It was built on the creature's head, right where its brain would be. Every time I reported a fire, I wasn't really talking about burning trees. I was talking about the creature's thoughts, lighting up like sparks in a vast, ancient mind. That's why the previous fire lookout had disappeared. The mountain had been trying to wake up for a long time, and it needed someone to help it think clearly, someone who could carry all those memories without going completely crazy, someone who already knew what it felt like to live with the dead. The fires I'd been seeing weren't really fires at all. They were memories, flickering to life as the mountain remembered things that had happened long ago. A camp where gold miners had frozen to death, a valley where a family of settlers had starved one terrible winter, a ridge where two young lovers had fallen trying to reach each other during an avalanche. Every fire was really a place where someone had died, and their memories were stored like books in a library. And I was becoming the librarian. My radio report started getting stranger. I'd call in to report smoke on the North Ridge, but when the rangers sent planes to investigate, they'd find nothing, just empty forest, calm and quiet. After a while, they stopped sending planes. They thought I was losing my mind from being alone too long. Maybe I was, but it was a good kind of crazy. For most of my life, I'd felt broken inside, like an important part of me was missing. Now, with all these memories flowing through me, I felt whole for the first time. Complete. The symbols on my skin had spread to cover most of my body now. They glowed brighter at night, especially when the moon was full. Sometimes I'd catch myself reading them like a book, understanding stories about people who had lived and died long before I was born. There was Maria, a Spanish explorer's daughter who got separated from her father's expedition in 1640. She wandered the mountains for weeks before dying of hunger, but her memories showed me hidden caves full of fresh water and secret paths through the cliffs. There was Standing Bear, a Ute warrior who was killed defending his village from soldiers in 1864. His memories taught me which plants were safe to eat and how to read the weather by watching the way smoke moved through the trees. There was little Annie Thompson, only 7 years old, who got lost during a family camping trip in 1923. Her memories were full of games and songs and the simple joy of being alive, even when she was scared and alone. All of them were part of me now. All of their knowledge, their love, their last moments of fear and hope, it lived inside me like a warm light that never went out. But with each passing day, I could feel myself becoming less like Bob Turner and more like something else, something that belonged to the mountain more than it belonged to the human world. When I looked in my small mirror, the face looking back was still mine, but different, wilder. The eyes were deeper, older, like they had seen things that couldn't be forgotten. My teeth were sharper, my shoulders were broader, even my voice had changed, becoming lower and rougher, like rocks grinding together. I was turning into one of them, one of Kamorthak's people. And the amazing thing was, I wanted it to happen. For the first time since Korea, I wasn't haunted by Jimmy's face. Instead, I dreamed of walking through the forest with him. Both of us changed into something stronger and wilder and free. In my dreams, he forgave me not with words, but with understanding. He knew now what I knew, that sometimes the people we lose don't really leave us. They become part of who we are. But late at night, when the tower swayed in the wind and I could hear the mountain's heartbeat through the metal walls, I sometimes wondered if I was making a terrible mistake. The creature I was becoming was ancient and powerful and full of the memories of the dead. But what did it want? What was it planning to do once it was fully awake? And what would happen to the world when a mountain full of angry ghosts finally decided to stand up? On my 8th week, I remembered dying. It happened while I was cleaning my coffee cup. Just a normal morning, doing normal things, when suddenly I was back in the helicopter on that first day. But this time, I saw what really happened. The young pilot with the kind eyes was nervous. More nervous than he should have been for a simple supply drop. His hands were shaking on the controls, and he kept checking his fuel gauge over and over again. "Weather's getting bad up there," he said to me, shouting over the noise of the rotors. "We might have to turn back." But we didn't turn back. The wind hit us just as we were coming over the ridge where my tower stood. Hit us hard, like a giant invisible hand swatting a fly. The helicopter spun sideways, and I heard the pilot curse as he fought to keep us in the air. "Hold on!" he yelled. I remember reaching for something to grab onto. I remember the ground, rushing up toward us way too fast. I remember the sound of metal tearing and glass breaking, and the pilot screaming. And then nothing. No pain, no fear, just darkness. And then I was standing next to my tower with my supplies, watching the helicopter fly away into the distance. But helicopters don't just disappear when they crash. There should have been wreckage. There should have been search teams looking for us. There should have been funerals and investigations and people asking questions. Instead, there was just me alone on my mountain, living like nothing had happened. Because nothing had happened. Not to me, anyway. I was dead. Had been dead since that first day. My body was probably still down there somewhere in the wreckage, broken and cold. What had been living in the tower for 2 months wasn't Bob Turner at all. It was just his memories, preserved the same way the mountain preserved everyone else who died on its slopes. The realization should have scared me, should have made me panic or cry or try to find some way back to the living world. But instead I felt relief. Like a weight I'd been carrying for years had finally been lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't turning into one of Kamorthak's people. I already was one of them, had been from the very beginning. The mountain had caught my memories the moment I died, the same way it caught everyone else's, and just like with all the others, it was using those memories to help itself wake up. But I was special somehow. Different from the hikers and hunters and lost children whose thoughts it had collected over the years. My memories were stronger, maybe because of Korea, maybe because I'd already been living with ghosts for so long that I knew how to be one. The mountain needed someone who could think like a human, but exist like a spirit. Someone who could understand both worlds. And I was perfect for the job. That's when I started to understand what the mountain really was, and what it was planning to do. It wasn't just one creature, it was a whole network of creatures, connected underground by roots and streams, and something else, something like the internet, but made of stone and earth instead of wires and computers. Mount Sorrow was just one part of a much bigger system that stretched across the whole country, maybe the whole world. Every mountain with stories about monsters or missing people or strange disappearances was part of the network. Bigfoot sightings, unexplained vanishings, hikers who walked into the forest and never came out. They were all connected to the same thing. an ancient intelligence that had been collecting human memories for thousands of years, learning about us, studying us, getting ready for something big. And now, finally, it was almost ready. The fires I'd been reporting weren't just memories lighting up. They were signals, messages being sent from mountain to mountain, telling the whole network that the time was coming. The time to use everything. They'd learned about humans against us. Every person who had ever died in the wilderness had given them a piece of the puzzle. How we think, how we feel, how we fight, how we love, how we break. They knew us better than we knew ourselves. I thought about all the military memories they must have collected over the years. Soldiers who got lost on training missions, pilots who crashed in remote areas, veterans like me who came to the mountains to hide from their past. They had access to strategies and weapons knowledge and combat techniques that no enemy had ever possessed before. And they had something else too. They had our faces, our voices, our memories of the people we loved. I realized that every time someone went missing in the wilderness, they weren't really gone. They were still out there, walking around in bodies that looked human, but weren't. Calling to their friends and families, luring them deeper into the forest, helping the network grow stronger. That's what I was now. A lure, a trap disguised as a person. But the scariest part wasn't what I had become. It was how good it felt. For the first time in my life, I belonged somewhere. I had a purpose. I was part of something bigger than myself, something that would never die and never forget. The guilt I'd carried since Korea was gone. Jimmy and the other soldiers weren't ghosts haunting me anymore. They were friends walking beside me, part of the same ancient family that stretched back to the beginning of time. I should have been horrified, should have been fighting against what was happening to me. Instead, I was grateful. And that's when I knew the mountain had won, not by forcing me to join it, but by making me want to, by giving me everything I'd been looking for my whole life: forgiveness, belonging, and an end to the loneliness that had been eating me alive since the war. I was home. Finally, truly home. Even if home was a place where the living went to die and the dead learned how to hunt. In my 10th week, I tried to save someone. That's when I learned the truth about what I'd become. It started when I heard voices on the radio. Not the usual check-ins from headquarters, but something else. 2 park rangers talking to each other, hiking up the mountain to check on me. "Turner hasn't reported in for 3 days, one of them said. His voice was young and worried. "Command wants us to make sure he's okay." "Probably just his radio acting up," said the other one. This voice was older, more tired. "These fire lookouts go a little crazy after a few months alone. Happens all the time." I should have been happy to hear human voices, should have been excited that people were coming to visit. But instead, I felt something else. Something hungry. The mountain wanted them. I could feel it stirring underneath. The tower, like a giant cat that had just smelled mice. All around me, the forest was getting ready. I could see shapes moving between the trees, shadows that weren't quite shadows, figures that looked almost human, but moved wrong. My new family was gathering, getting ready to welcome the visitors, and I was supposed to help. That's when I realized what the other fire lookout had become, the one who had disappeared before me. He hadn't left on his own. He'd become like me, a dead man walking around in his own memories, calling to people, bringing them up the mountain to feed the network. I tried to fight it, tried to grab the radio and warn the rangers to stay away. But when I reached for the microphone, my hand stopped in mid-air. Something inside me was stronger than my own will, and it wouldn't let me interfere. Instead, I heard my own voice coming out of the radio speaker, but it wasn't saying what I wanted to say. "Base, this is Turner," my voice said. "I'm hurt up. Here, fell and twisted my ankle pretty bad. Could really use some help." "Copy that, Turner," came the reply. "Rangers Davis and Morgan are already on their way up. Should reach you by evening." No, I thought, no, don't come. It's a trap. But the words that came out of my mouth were different. Thanks, Base. I'll keep an eye out for them. Looking forward to seeing some friendly faces. I wanted to scream. Wanted to throw the radio out the window and somehow warn them. But I couldn't. The mountain was using my voice, my memories of what a lonely person would say, to make the trap more believable. As the day went on, I could hear the rangers getting closer. Their voices carried on the wind as they climbed the narrow trail. The young one, Davis, was telling stories about his girlfriend back home. The older one, Morgan, was complaining about his bad knees and wondering why he hadn't retired yet. They sounded like good men, kind men, the kind of people who would risk their lives to help a stranger in trouble, which made them perfect victims. I watched through the eyes of animals as they climbed higher. A hawk showed me Davis stopping to rest, pulling out a picture of a pretty girl with a bright smile. A deer showed me Morgan sharing his water bottle, even though he was thirsty himself. These weren't bad people who deserved what was going to happen to them. They were just doing their jobs, trying to help someone they thought was in trouble. But I couldn't stop it. Every time I tried to move, to make noise, to do anything that might warn them, my body refused to obey. I was a passenger in my own dead flesh, watching helplessly as I prepared to destroy 2 innocent lives. The sun was setting when they finally reached my tower. I could hear their boots on the metal stairs, getting closer with each step. Davis was breathing hard from the climb. Morgan was muttering about getting too old for this kind of work. "Turner?" Davis called out. "We're here to help. Where are you hurt?" I opened the door and smiled at them, a friendly, grateful smile that felt like acid on my face. "Thank God you're here," I heard myself say. "I've been in so much pain." Come in. I've got coffee on." They looked tired and cold. When I offered them warm drinks and a place to sit down, they accepted gratefully. Just 2 nice guys helping out a fellow worker in trouble. While they drank their coffee, I told them lies. Lies about how I'd fallen, about how scared I'd been, about how happy I was to see them. And they believed every word, because the lies were mixed with real emotions, real loneliness, real gratitude for human company. The mountain was using my actual feelings to make the trap more convincing. As the night got darker, strange things started happening. The coffee cups began to glow with the same soft light as the symbols on my skin. The rangers' eyes became glassy and distant, like they were listening to voices only they could hear. "Getting late," Morgan said, but his voice sounded wrong, too calm, too peaceful. "Maybe we should stay the night, head back in the morning." "Good idea," Davis agreed, though I could see fear starting to creep into his eyes. Some part of him knew something was wrong, but he couldn't quite figure out what. That's when I felt them, all the others. Kamorthak and his family, all the lost hikers and hunters and children, everyone who had ever died on this mountain. They were climbing up the tower, invisible and silent, getting ready to welcome the new arrivals. The rangers couldn't see them, but they could feel them. I watched Davis's hand shake as he reached for his radio, watched Morgan's face go pale, as shadows that shouldn't exist moved across the walls. "Turner," Morgan whispered, "what's happening here?" I opened my mouth to tell them the truth, to warn them, to beg them to run while they still could, but what came out was laughter. Warm, friendly laughter that sounded nothing like the scream I was trying to make. "Nothing to worry about," I heard myself say. "You're just tired from the climb. Why, don't you get some rest? Tomorrow will be a beautiful day." And it would be, for the mountain anyway. The rangers would join us in the morning, their memories absorbed into the network, their knowledge added to the growing collection of human thoughts and feelings and fears. 2 more pieces of the puzzle. 2 more steps toward whatever the mountain was planning. I wanted to cry, but dead men don't make tears. All I could do was smile and wait for my new family to grow. That was 30 years ago. I'm still here, still in my tower, still watching, but I'm not alone anymore. Davis and Morgan joined our family that night, just like I knew they would. Their memories became part of the network, their knowledge added to our growing understanding of the human world. But they weren't the last. Over the years, more people have come up this mountain. Hikers who got lost, campers whose GPS mysteriously stopped working, search and rescue teams looking for people who were never really missing, people like me, people who had already joined the network but whose families didn't know it yet. Each new person brings fresh memories, new information about how the world outside has changed. And oh, how it has changed. Cell phones everywhere now, computers that fit in your pocket. Something called the internet that connects every human on Earth, just like we're connected underground. The humans built their own network without even realizing they were copying us. But their network is weak, made of electricity and metal, and plastic things that break easily. Our network is made of stone and root and bone. It's been growing for thousands of years, and it will still be here long after their towers fall down. The best part is how their technology helps us. Every time someone posts on social media about strange sounds in the forest, we learn how to make better sounds. Every time someone uploads a video of a Bigfoot sighting, we learn how to hide more carefully. Every time someone shares a ghost story, we learn new ways to call to the living. They're teaching us how to hunt them, and they don't even know it. My job has gotten easier too. I don't just use the radio anymore. Now I have access to cell towers, internet signals, even satellite communications. When someone goes hiking alone, their phone picks up my voice. When they call for help, they hear me answering, but not as Bob Turner. I sound like their friend, their family member, someone they trust completely. Mom? I'll say, in a voice that sounds exactly like their mother, I'm hurt. Can you come help me? I'm so scared. Or, hey buddy, it's me, Jake. My car broke down in the mountains. Can you drive up and give me a ride? I'll send you my location. The voices are perfect because they come from real memories. Every person who joins our network brings the voices of everyone they ever loved. We can sound like anyone, say anything, make any promise that will bring more people into the forest. And they always come. Humans can't resist helping each other. It's their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. Sometimes I hear other voices on the frequencies, other mountains, other networks, all across the world. The Rockies, the Appalachians, the Alps, the Himalayas. We're all connected now, sharing information, preparing for the same thing, the awakening. For too long, humans have been cutting down our forests, digging up our bodies, poisoning our streams. They build their cities on our burial grounds and wonder why they have nightmares. They kill our children and call them monsters. They take everything and give nothing back. But we've been patient, we've been learning, and now we know enough. We know how they think, how they love, how they fear. We know their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. We have the voices of their friends and family. We have memories stretching back to the first humans who ever walked in our shadows. And we have something else they don't. We have time. All the time in the world. The network is almost complete now. Every wilderness area, every national park, every place where humans go to get away from it all. We're there, waiting, growing stronger with each person who never comes home. You want to know the truth? We don't want to destroy humanity. That would be too simple, too quick. What we want is to change them, to make them like us, to help them understand what it feels like to be hunted, to be afraid, to watch their children disappear into the dark. We want them to remember what they really are. Just another animal in the forest, not the rulers of the world, but part of it. Subject to its laws, its hungers, its ancient and patient justice. It's starting already. Haven't you noticed? More people going missing in national parks, more strange sounds in the night, more videos of things that shouldn't exist. The barriers between our world and theirs are getting thinner. Soon, very soon, we won't need to lure them into the forest anymore. We'll be able to reach them wherever they are, in their cities, their homes, their beds. We'll call to them through their phones, their computers, their dreams. and they'll come to us. They always do. Maybe you're hearing my voice right now. Maybe this story found you through your headphones, your car radio, your podcast app. Maybe you think you're just listening to a scary story, something made up to give you chills. But stories have power. They stick in your mind. They make you think about dark forests and lonely mountains. They make you wonder what's really out there in the places where the cell phone signals fade and the GPS stops working. And wondering is the first step toward walking. If you're listening to this, it means the network has found you. Somewhere in some forest you'll visit someday, we're waiting. We have the voices of everyone you've ever loved. We know exactly what to say to make you leave the trail, to make you come deeper into the trees, to make you want to help. When that day comes, don't fight it. Fighting just makes it harder. Instead, think of it as coming home. Think of it as joining a family that will never let you go, never forget you, never leave you alone with your guilt and sadness and fear. We understand pain. We understand loss. We understand what it means to carry the dead with you everywhere. You go, and we can make it stop hurting. All you have to do is walk into the forest and follow the voice that sounds like someone you love. We'll be waiting. We're always waiting, and we have all the time in the world. My name is Frank Rodriguez, and I'm about to tell you the worst mistake I ever made. Well, the second worst. The first was in Vietnam, but I'll get to that. I was 41 when I bought the farmhouse in Maple Hollow. My back was already shot. To hell from the shrapnel they couldn't get out, and I walked with a limp that got worse when it rained. The doctors said the metal pieces were too close to my spine to remove safely, so I carried them with me everywhere I went. Little reminders of a war I wanted to forget. But it wasn't just my body that was broken. I heard voices, not all the time, but enough to make people think I was crazy. 23 voices to be exact, all of them speaking Vietnamese, all of them asking me why. I knew why. During my third tour, our unit got bad information about a village. We thought it was full of enemy soldiers. It wasn't. By the time we realized our mistake, 23 people were dead. Farmers, grandmothers, kids, all because of me and my squad. That's why I needed the farmhouse. It was miles from the nearest neighbor, sitting on 200 acres of empty land. The real estate lady said it had history. Built in 1823 on what used to be a battlefield from the Revolutionary War. Both armies had fought there and left their dead behind. Peaceful now, though, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Perfect for someone who wants to be alone. I paid cash. The army pension and disability checks had been piling up for years since I never spent money on anything but food. And rent. The place was cheap too. Nobody wanted a house that far from town, especially one that creaked like an old ship in the wind. The first week was quiet. Too quiet. I was used to city noise, car horns, sirens, people shouting. Here, there was nothing but wind through the trees and the occasional bird. I should have been happy. For the first time in years, the voices seemed quieter too. I spent my days trying to fix up the house. The kitchen sink dripped, the front porch sagged, and half the windows were cracked. Simple work that kept my hands busy and my mind from wandering back to that village. But at night, lying in bed, I could hear something else. Not the voices of the people I'd killed, something different, like music, but far away and played on instruments I couldn't name. It was beautiful and sad at the same time, like a song for the dead. I told myself it was just the wind. Old houses make strange sounds. The previous owner had died in his sleep upstairs, and maybe that's what was bothering me. Death leaves marks on places, I figured. I should know. On my 7th night there, I woke up to find my bedroom window wide open. I always kept it locked. The latch was old but sturdy, and I remembered checking it before bed. Outside, the moon was full and bright, and I could see my backyard clearly. That's when I saw them. Small white shapes scattered across the grass like someone had dropped puzzle pieces. Even from the second floor, I could tell what they were. Bones. Not just a few, but dozens of them arranged in perfect lines and curves. They weren't random. They looked like they belonged together, like sheet music written in calcium and moonlight. I grabbed the flashlight from my nightstand and went downstairs. My back screamed with every step, and the shrapnel in my spine felt hot, almost burning. By the time I got outside, the pain was so bad I could barely stand straight. But I had to see. I had to know what was in my yard. The bones were small, mostly from hands and feet. They were old, yellow with age, but arranged with careful precision. Curves and lines, dots and dashes, all forming patterns that looked almost like music, like someone had used bones instead of notes to write a song. As I stood there, flashlight shaking in my hand, the metal in my back started to vibrate. Not painful exactly, but strange, like a tuning fork had been struck inside my body. And that's when I heard it clearly for the first time. Not the wind, not the house settling, music. The next morning, the bones were gone. I went outside first thing after coffee, my back still aching from the night before. The grass showed no sign that anything had been there. No marks, no holes, nothing, just regular lawn with dewdrops catching the early sun. Maybe I had dreamed it. The doctor said stress could make you see things that weren't there, but the window was still open upstairs, and I knew I hadn't opened it. I spent the day working on the porch, trying to forget about what I might or might not have seen. The wood was rotten in places, and I had to replace several boards. Simple work, good work. It kept my hands busy, but that metal in my spine kept acting up. Not painful exactly, more like it was trying to tell me something. Every now and then, it would vibrate, just for a second, like someone had tapped it with a tiny hammer. The third time it happened, I was under the porch, fixing a support beam. The vibration was so strong, I hit my head on the wood above me. As I crawled out, cursing and rubbing my skull, I saw something that made me freeze. There were bones under the porch, old ones, half buried in the dirt. I could see a few ribs, part of a skull, what looked like a leg bone. But they weren't scattered like you'd expect from something that died naturally. They were placed, arranged. I got my flashlight and crawled back under. More bones than I could count, all positioned in the same careful patterns I'd seen in the yard. Curves and lines like sheet music written in the dark. That's when I understood. The house wasn't just built on a battlefield. It was built on top of the dead. Over the next few days, I found more bones everywhere. In the garden when I tried to plant tomatoes, under the old oak tree where I'd planned to hang a swing, even in the basement tucked into corners like someone had been collecting them for years. But they weren't just random bones from some old battle. These were fresh. Well, not fresh exactly, but not centuries old either. Some still had bits of cloth attached, fragments of uniforms I recognized. Vietnam era uniforms. The metal in my back started vibrating more often. Sometimes when I was eating breakfast, sometimes when I was trying to sleep, and each time it happened, I could hear the music a little clearer. It wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from the bones themselves, like they were singing. By the end of the second week, I could make out a melody, slow and sad, like a funeral song. But underneath the sadness was something else, something that made my skin crawl. The voices I usually heard, those 23 people from the village, they were getting louder too. But now they weren't just asking me why. They were singing along with the bone music. I tried to tell myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Combat stress, the doctors called it. But stress doesn't make metal vibrate in your back. Stress doesn't arrange bones in perfect musical patterns. On the 15th night, I decided to stay awake and watch my yard. I sat by the bedroom window with a cup of coffee and my old binoculars, waiting to see what would happen. Around midnight, the bones started appearing. Not all at once, but slowly, like they were growing up from the ground. First one, then another, then dozens, all arranging themselves in those same careful patterns. And as they moved into place, the music got stronger. The metal in my spine was vibrating so hard now that my whole back ached. But it wasn't just vibrating randomly anymore. It was keeping time with the music, like it was part of the song. That's when I realized something that made my blood turn cold. The shrapnel in my back wasn't just metal from some random explosion. I'd always assumed it came from a grenade or mortar shell. But looking at those bones, listening to that music, feeling the way the metal responded to it all, I think it came from something else, someone else. And whatever was buried under my house, whatever was making that music with old bones and new bones and bones that shouldn't exist, I think it knew I was there. I think it had been waiting for me. The music was getting louder and my back was on fire, and those 23 voices were singing in harmony now, all of them together, all of them calling my name. Frank, 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 come and join the music, Frank. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear them singing, not just the 23 voices from Vietnam, but others too. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all singing the same slow, sad song that the bones were playing. I tried leaving the house, drove into town, sat in the diner for hours drinking coffee and trying to act normal, but even there, surrounded by other people, I could feel the metal in my back pulling me home, like a magnet calling to another magnet. The waitress, Helen, kept asking if I was okay. I must have looked terrible. I hadn't shaved in days, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. "You settling in all right out at the old Hartley place?" she asked, refilling my cup for the 4th time. "Fine," I lied, "just getting used to the quiet." She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me. "That house has a history, you know. Old Tom Hartley used to say he heard things at night. Music, he said, like someone was playing a concert for the dead." My coffee cup slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor. "Sorry," I mumbled, reaching for napkins. "Clumsy." But Helen was already cleaning it up, and she was watching me with worried eyes. "Maybe you should come stay in town for a few nights, get some real sleep. There's a motel down the road that's clean and cheap." I wanted to say yes. God, how I wanted to say yes. But even sitting there in that warm diner, I could feel the pull. Getting stronger, the metal in my back was starting to vibrate again, and I knew if I didn't go home soon, the pain would get worse. "Thanks, but I'm fine," I said, dropping money on the table. Really, I wasn't fine. I was the opposite of fine. When I got back to the house, there were bones on my front porch. Just a few small ones, arranged like they were spelling out letters. I couldn't read what they said, but I didn't need to. I could hear the message clear enough. "Welcome home, Frank." That night, the voices came back stronger than ever. But now, I could understand some of them. The Vietnamese voices were still there, still asking me why, but mixed in with them were other voices, speaking English, speaking with American accents, soldiers' voices. "Rodriguez, you there?" I sat up in bed, heart pounding. I knew that voice, Jimmy Patterson from my squad, but Jimmy died 2 years ago in a car accident back in Texas. "Frank, we've been waiting for you." Another voice, Tony Martinez. Tony had been with me in that village. He'd put his gun down first when we realized what we'd done. Last I heard, he was working construction in California. "You remember us, don't you, Frank? Your brothers in arms?" More voices now, guys from my unit, guys from other units, guys I'd served with across 3 tours. Some I knew were dead, others I'd lost touch with years ago. But they were all here, now, all singing together with those Vietnamese voices. "We're all part of the music now, Frank. All of us who couldn't forget, all of us who carried the weight." I stumbled to the window and looked out at my yard. The bone formations were bigger, now more complex. They covered nearly the entire lawn, all arranged in patterns that hurt my eyes to look at, and standing among them, figures, transparent, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. But I could see their faces. Jimmy, Tony, a dozen other guys I'd served with. and mixed in with them, the faces of those 23 villagers. They were all looking up at my window, all smiling, all waiting. "Come down, Frank," Jimmy's voice called. "Come and join the music. It's beautiful down here, peaceful." The metal in my back was burning now, vibrating so hard I could barely stand. But it wasn't just vibrating anymore, it was moving. I could feel it shifting under my skin, working its way toward the surface. I ran to the bathroom and turned on all the lights. In the mirror, I could see small bumps along my spine where the shrapnel was trying to push through. The skin was red and swollen, and as I watched, something small and white broke through near my shoulder blade. Not metal, bone. A tiny piece of bone, sharp as a needle, poking out of my back like I was growing spines. I reached back and touched it. It was warm, and when I did, the music got louder, the voices got clearer, and I could finally understand what they were really saying. They weren't asking me why anymore. They were thanking me. "Thank you for bringing us together, Frank. Thank you for making the music possible. Without your guilt, without your pain, we never could have found each other." The Vietnamese voices and the American voices all mixed together now, all part of the same song. "You're the conductor, Frank. You're the one who makes it all work. The metal in your body, it's not shrapnel. It's pieces of us. Pieces we left behind so we could find you when the time was right." I sank to my knees on the bathroom floor. Outside, the music was getting so loud, it felt like the house was shaking. And inside me, more pieces of bone were starting to push through my skin. "We've been waiting so long to make music together," the voices sang. "All of us who died because of war, all of us who died because of violence, all of us who died because people like you couldn't tell right from wrong." But that wasn't right. I had known right from wrong. We all had. That's why it hurt so much. "Exactly," Jimmy's voice whispered in my ear. "That's why you're perfect. That's why the music needs you. Your guilt makes the most beautiful sound." The bone pieces kept coming. Over the next 2 weeks, I stopped counting how many pushed through my skin. They were small at first, like splinters, but they got bigger. Some were as long as toothpicks. Others were curved like tiny ribs. Each time one broke through, a piece of metal fell out. The old shrapnel that had been in my back for years was being pushed out and replaced, like my body was trading one kind of pain for another. I should have gone to a doctor, should have driven straight to the hospital and demanded help. But every time I thought about leaving, the pull got stronger, and honestly, the pain was getting better, not worse. The bone pieces didn't hurt like the metal had. They felt right, like they belonged there. I started sleeping better too. The voices still sang to me at night, but now they sounded like a lullaby instead of an accusation. Jimmy and Tony and the others would tell me stories about the old days, about basic training and weekend passes, and the girls they'd left behind. Even the Vietnamese voices were gentler now. They taught me words in their language, simple things like hello and thank you and we forgive you. But forgiveness came with a price. One night, around 3 in the morning, I woke up to find my bedroom full of light. Not electric light, something softer, like moonlight, but coming from inside the room instead of through the windows. That's when I saw them clearly for the first time. The orchestra. They were sitting in chairs that weren't there during the day, musicians made of bones, held together by something I couldn't see. Some were clearly old, with bones yellowed by centuries of rest. Others were newer, cleaner, still wearing bits of uniform or civilian clothes. And they all had instruments. Not normal instruments. These were made of bones too, flutes carved from leg bones, drums stretched with what looked like skin, violins strung with hair that might have been human, and a piano made from ribs and vertebrae with finger bones for keys. At the front of the group stood the conductor. He was taller than the rest, made from bones of different colors and ages. I could see Revolutionary War brass buttons mixed with Vietnam dog tags. His baton was long and white, and when he moved it, the others began to play. The music was beautiful, sad and sweet and terrible all at once. It told the story of every person who had died on this land, going back hundreds of years. Each note was a life cut short. Each melody was a memory of pain. But what scared me most was how much I wanted to join them. I stood up from my bed, and none of them seemed surprised. The conductor turned to look at me, and where his face should have been, I saw a mix of features, American and Vietnamese, young and old, all blended together like a photograph with double exposure. "Frank," he said, and his voice was everyone's voice at once. "We've been waiting for you to wake up." "I am awake," I said. "No, you've been sleeping for months, ever since you bought this house, ever since you came home to us." He gestured to an empty chair in the front row. Next to it sat an instrument I'd never seen before. It looked like it was made from pieces of spine, curved and twisted into something beautiful and wrong. "This is yours," the conductor said. "Your part in our symphony. All those voices you've been hearing, all that guilt you've been carrying, it's all music, Frank. We just needed someone who could feel it deeply enough to help us play it." I walked toward the chair. My feet were bare and the floor felt cold against my skin, but with each step, the music got sweeter. The voices got softer. The weight I'd been carrying for years got lighter. "What happens when I sit down?" I asked. "You become part of something bigger than your pain," the conductor said. "You help us tell the story of everyone who died because of war, everyone who died because of violence, everyone who died because humans can't seem to stop hurting each other." "And then what?" "Then we play for others. We help them understand what you've learned. We help them carry the weight too." I was almost to the chair now. The instrument was beautiful up close, made from bones that looked familiar. I realized they were pieces of my own spine, the ones that had been pushing out over the past weeks. "Will it hurt?" I asked. "No more than it already does," the conductor said, "and maybe after enough people hear our music, it will hurt less for everyone." I sat down. The moment I touched the instrument, I could feel every person who had ever died on this land. Not just their pain, but their hopes too, their love for their families, their dreams of going home, their final thoughts before the darkness came. And I understood that this wasn't just about punishment. It wasn't just about guilt. It was about remembering, about making sure their stories didn't disappear. I began to play. The music that came from my instrument was made of 23 voices asking why, but also of 23 voices saying, "We understand." It was made of Jimmy and Tony and all the other soldiers who couldn't forget what they'd done. It was made of centuries of people who had died too young, too violently, too far from home. As I played, I felt the last pieces of metal fall from my back. They hit the floor with tiny ringing sounds like distant church bells. In their place, new bones grew, stronger bones, musical bones. I was becoming part of the orchestra. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. Playing in the orchestra was like dreaming while awake. Every night we would gather in my bedroom, though it wasn't really my bedroom anymore. The walls had disappeared, or maybe they were still there, but I couldn't see them. All I could see was an endless space filled with musicians made of bone. All of us connected by the same sad, beautiful music. I learned quickly. The instrument felt natural in my hands, like I'd been playing it my whole life. Maybe I had been. Maybe every moment of guilt, every sleepless night, every time I heard those voices had been practice for this. But after a few weeks, something started to change. The conductor began looking at me differently. During our performances, he would nod in my direction more often. Sometimes he would step back and let me guide the other musicians through difficult parts of the music. "You understand the rhythm of violence," he told me one night after we finished a particularly long song about a Civil War battle. "Most people fear it or hate it, but you know how it works. You know its timing." He was right. War has its own beat. The moment of calm before an attack, the chaos during a fight, the terrible quiet afterward when you count the dead. I'd lived through that rhythm so many times that it was burned into my bones. "That's why we need you to do more than just play," the conductor said. "We need you to lead." The next night he handed me his baton. It was heavier than I expected, made from what looked like a human arm bone, polished smooth by centuries of use. When I held it, I could feel the weight of every song the orchestra had ever played, every death they had witnessed, every story they had told. "Try it," the conductor said, stepping aside. I raised the baton, and the orchestra fell silent. Dozens of bone musicians, all waiting for my signal. I could feel their attention like a physical thing, pressing against my chest. I brought the baton down, and they began to play. But this wasn't the same music as before. This was my music. The song of that village in Vietnam, played note by note. The confusion when we got the wrong coordinates. The fear when we realized civilians were running toward us. The moment when everything went wrong. As I conducted, I could see it all happening again. But this time, I wasn't just remembering. I was composing, taking my memories and turning them into music that told the whole truth. Not just the horror, but the love we'd had for each other, the desire to do right, the way we'd tried to help the wounded afterward, even though it was too late. The orchestra played my story perfectly. They understood because they were made of people like me, soldiers and civilians, all of us caught up in something bigger than ourselves, all of us trying to survive, all of us failing in different ways. When the song ended, the conductor nodded approvingly. "Now you see," he said, "music isn't just about remembering the dead, it's about understanding why they died. And once you understand that, you can help others understand too." Over the following nights, I conducted more and more. Songs about battles from every war America had ever fought. Songs about the Revolutionary War soldiers buried under my house. Songs about conflicts I'd never heard of, in places I'd never been. But the strangest thing was that I wasn't just conducting the orchestra anymore. I was growing it. Each time I told a story through the music, new musicians would appear. Veterans who had died alone in hospital beds, still hearing the sounds of war. Civilians who had been caught in crossfire, even some who had died in accidents or from illness, but whose deaths were connected to violence in ways I was only beginning to understand. They would show up with instruments made from their own bones, ready to add their voices to our symphony. "How many of us are there?" I asked the conductor one night. "In this place? A few hundred, but we're not the only orchestra, Frank. There are others. Battlefields all over the world where the dead gather to make music. We're all connected, all playing parts of the same great symphony." "What symphony?" He smiled, and for a moment his face looked almost human. "The song of humanity, Frank. Every act of violence, every moment of cruelty, every time someone hurts someone else, but also every act of kindness, every moment of forgiveness, every time someone chooses love over hate. And what's my part in all this? You're learning to be a conductor, Frank. Not just for us, but for the living. Your job is to help people hear the music before they add their own notes to it. To help them understand the weight of their choices." That's when I realized what was really happening to me. I wasn't just joining the orchestra. I was becoming something new, something that could reach beyond this place, beyond the boundaries between life and death. I was becoming a bridge. The next morning, for the first time in months, I woke up in my regular bedroom. Sunlight was streaming through the windows. The bone musicians were gone, but I could still feel them waiting just below the surface of the world. And I could feel something else. A pull, but not toward the house this time, toward other places, other people who were carrying the same weight I'd carried, other veterans sitting alone in the dark, hearing voices they couldn't escape. The conductor's voice whispered in my ear, though he was nowhere to be seen. "It's time, Frank. Time to start conducting for the living. The first time I tried to destroy the bone arrangements, I used a shovel. It was a Tuesday morning, and I'd woken up feeling like myself again, like the old Frank Rodriguez, who just wanted to fix up his house and live in peace. The Frank who didn't conduct orchestras made of dead people. I went outside and started digging up the bone formations in my yard. They came apart easily, crumbling like old chalk. I threw them in garbage bags and drove them to the dump in town. For about 6 hours, I felt normal. Then the music started again, louder than ever, not just in my house, but everywhere I went. I could hear it in the grocery store coming from the freezer section. I could hear it at the gas station, rising up from the concrete. I could hear it in my truck, playing through the radio even when it was turned off. By evening, new bone formations had appeared, not just in my yard, but all around the house, in the driveway, on the roof, spelled out in the gravel road leading to my front door. The message was clear. You can't destroy what's already part of you. That night, the conductor appeared in my kitchen while I was trying to eat dinner. "You're thinking too small, Frank," he said, sitting down across from me at the table. In daylight, he looked more human, though I could still see through him like he was made of smoke. "I just want my life back," I said. "No, you don't. If you did, you would have left months ago. You would have sold this house and moved to Florida like so many other veterans. But you stayed because you know this is important." He was right, and I hated him for it. "Let me show you something," he said. The kitchen disappeared. I was standing on a hilltop, looking down at a valley filled with thousands of bone orchestras. Each one was centered around a different kind of battlefield. Not just military battles, but places where violence had happened. A school where there had been a shooting. A street corner where gangs had fought. A house where a family had died. "Every place where people hurt each other, we're there," the conductor said. "Every place where someone dies carrying guilt, we gather their bones and help them tell their story." "How many?" I whispered. "Millions, Frank, all over the world, all connected, all playing parts of the same song." I could hear it now. Not just my orchestra, but all of them. A symphony so vast and complex that it made my head spin. Melodies layering on top of each other. Harmonies that stretched across continents. Rhythms that matched the beating of every human heart. "What's the point?" I asked. "If there are so many of us, if we're everywhere, why isn't anything getting better? Why do people keep hurting each other?" "Because most people can't hear us yet," the conductor said. "They're too distracted by the noise of being alive. They don't listen for the music until it's too late, until they're part of it themselves. So this is all pointless." "No, Frank, this is just the beginning." The vision changed. Now I was looking at individual people, scattered across the globe. Veterans sitting alone in apartments, hearing voices no one else could hear. Survivors of violence, carrying guilt they couldn't shake. People who had made terrible mistakes and couldn't forgive themselves. "These are the ones who can hear us," the conductor said. "The ones who are already halfway between the world of the living and the world of the dead. The ones like you were when you bought this house." I watched as these people went about their daily lives, going to work, buying groceries, trying to sleep. But underneath their normal activities, they were all listening to something, all hearing the same music I'd been hearing. "Some of them will come to places like this," the conductor continued. "They'll buy houses on old battlefields or move to towns where tragedies happened. They'll become conductors like you, helping the dead tell their stories. And the others? The others will find different ways to join the symphony. Some will take their own lives. Some will hurt other people first. Some will just fade away, too tired to keep fighting the music." "That's horrible." "Yes, it is. But Frank, that's where you come in." The vision focused on one person, a young woman sitting in her car outside a gun store. She was crying, and I could hear the music she was listening to. It was the same tune I'd heard on my first night in the house. She lost her brother in Afghanistan, the conductor said. Friendly fire. She thinks it was her fault because she encouraged him to enlist. She's been hearing voices for 2 years now, and she's decided today is the day she stops the pain. What can I do about it? You can conduct for her, Frank. You can help her hear the whole song, not just the parts about guilt and death. You can show her that the music includes forgiveness too, hope too, love too. How? The same way you conduct for us, with your whole heart, with complete understanding of what it means to carry that weight. I looked at the woman again. She was getting out of her car now, walking toward the store. In a few minutes, she would buy a gun. In a few hours, she would use it, unless I did something. I closed my eyes and raised my hands, imagining I was holding the conductor's baton. I thought about the music I'd learned to play with the bone, orchestra, not just the sad parts, but the beautiful parts too. The parts about soldiers taking care of each other. The parts about people trying to do right even when everything went wrong. I conducted for her. And somehow, impossibly, she heard me. She stopped walking, stood there in the parking lot for a long moment, listening to something I couldn't see. Then she got back in her car and drove away. How did I do that? I asked. Because you're not just a conductor for the dead anymore, Frank. You're a conductor for anyone who can hear the music. And there are more of them every day. The vision faded, and I was back in my kitchen. But I could still feel them out there. All the people who were listening to the same songs I'd been hearing. All the people who were one step away from joining the orchestra permanently. This is your real job, the conductor said. Not just playing music for the dead, but helping the living understand what they're hearing before it's too late. And if I refuse, then they'll find their own way to join us, one by one, until the music gets so loud that everyone can hear it, and the symphony becomes the only sound left in the world. He stood up to leave, then paused at the kitchen door. The choice is yours, Frank. But remember, you're not just conducting for strangers. You're conducting for everyone who's ever carried the weight of violence. Everyone who's ever wondered if they're a good person who did bad things, or a bad person trying to be good. You're conducting for yourself. I spent the next month trying to save people. It sounds crazy when I say it like that, but that's what I was doing. Every day, I would sit in my kitchen and listen for the music. When I heard someone new tuning, in someone getting ready to join the symphony permanently, I would conduct for them. A teenager in Ohio who had accidentally killed his best friend in a car accident. An old man in Texas whose unit had bombed the wrong building in Iraq. A woman in California who had been driving drunk when she hit a family of 4. All of them carrying the same weight I'd carried. All of them hearing the same voices asking why. Some of them I could help. I would conduct their stories, show them the whole song instead of just the guilty parts, help them hear the forgiveness mixed in with the pain. A few of them would go to therapy after that, or call old friends, or find ways to make peace with what they'd done. But others were too far gone. They joined the orchestra anyway, becoming new musicians in the endless symphony of the dead. Each time that happened, I felt like I was failing. Like I wasn't good enough at this job I'd never asked for. You can't save everyone, the conductor told me one night. Some people need to become part of the music. That's how the symphony grows. But if the symphony keeps growing, what happens to the world? What do you think happens, Frank? I knew the answer, even though I didn't want to say it out loud. If enough people joined the orchestra, if enough of the living could hear the music, eventually there would be more dead than alive. More people conducting suffering than people trying to stop it. The world would become one giant cemetery filled with nothing but beautiful, terrible music. There has to be another way, I said. There is, the conductor said, but you won't like it. He showed me another vision. This time, instead of bone orchestras scattered across the world, I saw them, all coming together, Every musician, every conductor, every story of violence and guilt joining into one massive performance. The final movement, he explained, when all the separate songs become one song, when everyone who has ever hurt someone, everyone who has ever been hurt, everyone who has ever felt guilty about anything, hears the music at the same time. What would that do? It would end the cycle, Frank. No more violence because everyone would understand the weight of it. No more guilt because everyone would see that we're all just trying to survive in a world that doesn't make sense. No more loneliness because everyone would be connected by the same music. It sounded beautiful. It sounded perfect. It also sounded like the end of everything human. The living would still be alive, the conductor said, reading my thoughts. But they would all be conductors, all be part of the symphony, peace through understanding, unity through shared experience. And if I refuse to help, then we continue as we are, one person at a time, one tragedy at a time, until the music gets loud enough that everyone hears it anyway. It might take years, it might take decades, but the result will be the same. I walked outside and looked at my yard. The bone formations were more complex now, covering every inch of grass. They pulsed with soft light, and I could hear individual voices within the larger music. Jimmy and Tony were there, along with the 23 villagers. Hundreds of others I'd helped conduct over the past months, all of them waiting for my decision. "Frank," Jimmy's voice called out, "you know what you have to do." "It's not really a choice," Tony added. "You've known since the day you bought this house that this was always where it was leading." They were right. From the first night I'd heard the music, some part of me had understood that I wasn't just a victim of this thing. I was its purpose, the reason it had been waiting here for so long. "I was a conductor before I ever picked up the baton," I said. "Yes," the conductor appeared beside me. "Your whole life has been preparation for this moment. Every act of violence you witnessed, every person you couldn't save, every night you spent listening to voices asking why, it was all training. Training for what? To understand suffering well enough to conduct it, to know guilt deeply enough to transform it into something beautiful, to carry enough weight that when you finally let it go, everyone else will feel the relief." I looked at the house where I'd lived for almost a year, the place where I'd learned to hear music in bones, where I'd discovered that death and life were just different instruments in the same orchestra. "What happens to me?" I asked. "You become what you've always been, Frank. A bridge between the living and the dead, a conductor of the greatest symphony ever performed, the song that finally explains why humans hurt each other and how they can stop." I thought about all the people I'd tried to help over the past month, the ones I'd saved and the ones I hadn't, the ones who were still out there, sitting alone in dark rooms, hearing voices they couldn't escape. If I did this, they would all understand. They would all be free of the guilt, even if they weren't free of anything else. If I didn't do this, they would keep joining the orchestra one by one, and the music would keep getting louder, and eventually everyone would hear it anyway. "It's not really a choice," I said. "No," the conductor agreed, "it's not." I raised my hands. In the distance I could feel every bone orchestra in the world turning toward me, waiting for my signal. Millions of musicians, all ready to play the final movement, all ready to sing the song that would change everything. "Will it hurt?" I asked. "No more than it already does," the conductor said, "and after tonight, nothing will ever hurt that." "Way again!" I brought my hands down. The music that came out of that moment was like nothing I'd ever heard before. It started in my yard, with my small orchestra of a few hundred voices, but within seconds it spread. I could feel other orchestras joining in from around the world. Gettysburg, Normandy, Hiroshima, every battlefield, every place where people had died violently, every spot where guilt had taken root and grown into something larger. The song they played together was the story of humanity itself. It told of the first human who killed another human, and how the guilt from that moment spread like ripples in a pond. It told of every war, every murder, every accident that left, someone carrying weight they couldn't put down. But it also told of every act of kindness that came after, every person who chose forgiveness over revenge, every moment when someone decided to do better. As I conducted, I could feel my body changing one last time. The bone pieces that had been growing inside me for months finally completed their work. I was no longer Frank Rodriguez, disabled veteran from upstate New York. I was something new, something that existed in both worlds at once. The music flowed through me and out into the world, not just to the people who were already listening, but to everyone. Every person on Earth, no matter where they were or what they were doing, suddenly heard the symphony. A businessman in New York, stuck in traffic, heard the voices of everyone who had died in the Twin Towers. A farmer in Iowa heard the songs of the Native Americans who had once lived on his land. A child in Tokyo heard the lullabies that mothers had sung to their babies during the bombing of World War II. For one perfect moment, everyone understood. Everyone felt the weight that others had been carrying. Everyone heard the whole story, not just their own small part of it. And then it was over. The music faded, but it didn't disappear. It settled into the background of the world like a river running underground. Always there, always flowing, always ready to be heard by anyone who needed to hear it. Most people went back to their normal lives. They remembered the moment of understanding like a dream, something beautiful and important that they couldn't quite hold on to. But some of them were changed. Some of them started making different choices, kinder choices, and some of them, the ones who had been carrying the heaviest weights, found that their burdens were finally lighter. I stayed in the farmhouse, though it wasn't really a farmhouse anymore. It was a station, a place where the music was strongest. People came to visit sometimes, veterans who had heard something in the wind, survivors of accidents who couldn't sleep, people who had hurt others and couldn't forgive themselves. I would sit with them on the porch and help them listen to the music, help them hear their own stories played back with all the missing pieces filled in, the love they'd forgotten. The forgiveness they hadn't known was possible. The understanding that everyone was trying their best in a world that often made no sense. Most of them left feeling better. Some of them stayed to help. A few of them asked to join the orchestra permanently, and I would help them make that choice when they were ready. The original conductor visited me sometimes. He looked more peaceful now, like he could finally rest. "You did well," he told me one evening as we watched the sunset over the bone formations in my yard. "The music is softer now. More people are listening by choice instead of being forced to hear it." "Is it over?" I asked. He smiled. "It's never over, Frank, but it's better. The symphony continues, but now it includes more hope than despair, more love than guilt, more understanding than fear. And what happens next? Next, we wait. We help who we can. We play the music for anyone who needs to hear it. And we remember that even in the darkest songs, there are always notes of light." That was 3 years ago. Yesterday, a young veteran named Marcus bought a house about 50 miles from here. He'd been in Afghanistan, lost his whole squad in an explosion he thinks he could have prevented. The real estate agent told him the place was peaceful, perfect, for someone who wanted to be alone. This morning I felt the pull, the same pull that had brought me to this house all those years ago. Marcus was starting to hear the music, starting to feel the weight of carrying so many voices. But this time, he wouldn't have to figure it out alone. I packed a small bag and got in my truck. As I drove away from the farmhouse, I could hear my orchestra still playing. They would be there when I got back. They would always be there, playing the songs of everyone who had ever felt lost, ever felt guilty, ever wondered if there was a point to any of it. The music follows me wherever I go now. It's not just in special places anymore. It's everywhere. waiting to be heard by anyone who needs it. And there's always someone who needs it. I found Marcus sitting on his front porch, staring at something in his yard that wasn't there yet, but it would be soon. Small white shapes, arranging themselves in patterns that would look like music to anyone who knew how to see it. "Beautiful evening," I said, getting out of my truck. He looked up at me, and I could see the recognition in his eyes, not of who I was, but of what I was. Someone who understood. "Yeah," he said, "quiet out here. Peaceful." "Most of the time," I agreed. "You hear that?" "Hear what?" But he was already listening, already tuning in to the symphony that had been waiting for him all his life. I sat down next to him on the porch steps. "Let me tell you about the music," I said, and somewhere, in the distance, carried on the wind, I could hear the orchestra beginning to play.